I died on a Tuesday, me, personally. I remember because I'd told my kids I would come out of seclusion by the weekend. Picture me, 200 years old, strongest man in the entire Chu Country, sitting cross-legged in my sealed cave, pushing my golden core toward the nascent soul realm. One breakthrough away from another 500 years of life. My spiritual power climbing, my meridians glowing, everything going exactly to plan. And then my body just quit. Like a phone dying at 1% while you're watching the loading bar. The old injury I'd been hiding for 30 years picked that exact moment to send me the final invoice. My lifespan hit zero mid-breakthrough, my golden core cracked, and the strongest man in Chu Country died alone in a cave, in the dark, 3 days before the weekend. The universe looked at me and said, LOL, no second chances, buddy. Except then a blue screen popped up in front of my dead face, and my afterlife got interesting. Sect simulator activated. Binding to host, Li Chuan, founding ancestor of the Qingshan sect. Current form, consciousness body. Consciousness body, let me translate for you. I was a ghost. An invisible, untouchable, walk-through-walls ghost, floating over my own corpse, while a system window cheerfully loaded my sect's status report. And that report was the second death of the day. Qingshan sect, rank Qi refining. Disciples 31. Treasury 23 spirit stones. 23 spirit stones. I built that sect with my own 2 hands. When I went into seclusion, it had over 1,000 disciples, 8 foundation establishment elders, a golden core ancestor. Me. And enough money to buy a small kingdom. I closed my eyes for 30 years, and my life's work had 23 spirit stones and a monthly deficit. My report actually listed income 150, expenses 180. My sect, my hall, my name over the gate, it wasn't declining. My sect was a man drowning in a puddle, politely, quietly, 30 stones a month. So I did what any dead founder would do. I went to look at my life's wreckage personally. Floating through my own mountain was a strange experience for me. The restrictions I'd personally carved into Green Lotus Mountain, barriers that could stop a golden core cultivator cold, parted around me like I was smoke. Nothing in this world could keep me out of anywhere. First perk of being dead, universal access. Second perk, and I tested this, nobody bills a ghost. The mountain I built hurt me to look at. Overgrown training grounds where I once drilled 1,000 blades. Empty halls, locked pavilions with dust an inch thick. 31 disciples rattling around a compound built for 1,000, like the last peas in a very large pot. And in my main hall, my 3 children were holding a meeting about whether the sect would exist in 3 years. Let me introduce them properly, because they're the whole point of my story. My eldest son, Li Fulin, 53, sect leader, the responsible one, the kind of man who reads the account books twice and sighs exactly once. My second son, Li Jinhai, 45, built like a door, temper like a firework, loyalty like a mountain. And my youngest, my daughter, Li Meiling, 41, artifact refiner, quiet as snowfall. Her status page in my system said 2 things that put a crack in my dead heart. Dao heart, lost. Condition, mild depression. I'd been gone 30 years and my little girl had stopped believing in her own future. My eldest laid the numbers out for everyone, and I graded every line. Income 730 stones a year, expenses over 1,200. At that rate, the Qingshan sect had 3 years left, and that was if nobody got sick, nothing broke, and no enemy came knocking. And an enemy absolutely would, because of me. More on that later. 2 options on my table. My option 1, freeze all disciple stipends for 3 years and pour everything into the spirit fields. My option 2, sell the founding token. The token was the sect's birth certificate, registered with the Celestial Pivot Institute, the continental authority that keeps sects from eating each other. It was worth 30,000 stones, and it was also the only legal reason my enemies hadn't already burned us down. Selling it meant 3 fat years and then an unmarked grave. Before anyone could vote, my second son's chief disciple stood up, and the room's temperature changed before he said a word, because everyone knows the posture of a man about to be careful with his phrasing. Chen Tianyu. My Jinhai trained him from age 9. The sect fed him through the famine years, armed him from a shrinking treasury, taught him arts his own family couldn't spell. He straightened his robes, good robes, his family could afford good robes now, and announced that he would be leaving the sect, effective immediately. The Tang family had risen to a foundation establishment clan, you see, and had recalled him to serve his own blood. Surely everyone understood. The Qingshan sect was, regrettably, no longer a match for his prospects. He said it exactly like that. Prospects. With the smooth, apologetic face of a man returning a rental he'd decided against. The hall detonated in stages, and I hung over it, taking attendance. Jinhai came up out of his seat so fast his chair went over. His own chief disciple, his own pick, the boy he'd bragged about for a decade, and had to be caught at the shoulder before the sect's discipline problems became structural. Wen Ruolan, senior sister of the disciples, heart the size of the hall and volume to match, told Chen Tianyu in front of everyone that if he walked out that door in this hour, of all the sect's hours, he'd better never once try walking back in. A couple of juniors started crying, which was somehow worse than the shouting. And Chen Tianyu stood in the middle of it with his careful face on, weathering it, because he'd priced all this in before he stood up. That's the detail I couldn't forgive from the rafters. Not the leaving, the pricing. Fu Lin didn't raise his voice at all. He let the noise burn down, basses then said, cold and level as ledger paper. The Qingshan sect does not chain the unwilling. Go. And to the hall. We vote. Chen Tianyu bowed politely to nobody in particular and walked out of my main hall, and my sect held a survival vote in the crater of its own morale. 16 hands for freezing stipends, 16 people voting to get poorer, together, on the worst day. 8 for selling the token. The token stayed. Hold on to that number for me, 16. Everything I built afterward, and I built plenty, I built on those 16 hands. And then the quiet part that nobody was supposed to see. After the meeting, my daughter caught Fu Lin alone and pressed her sword into his hands. The Zhaoyun sword. I gave her that blade for her 10th birthday. It was the last second-rank artifact in the whole sect, worth maybe 300 stones, and she said the words I will hear in my nightmares for the rest of my death. Sell it. My Dao heart is gone anyway. A sword is wasted on me. I hovered in that corridor, an all-powerful ghost who couldn't touch his own daughter's shoulder, and I made a decision. Fine. I'm dead. Dead is a technicality. I had a system, 50 starting reputation points, and 31 employees who didn't know their boss had come back as upper management. My Qingshan sect was getting rebuilt. By me. From beyond the grave. By the pettiest, most hands-on ghost in the history of cultivation. First, I read my manual. The system gave me 5 tools. Voice transmission. I could speak into any sect member's mind, free of charge, which is the single most dangerous thing you can give a father. Closed-door cultivation. I could sleep to slowly earn reputation points, at the cost of being deaf and blind while I did it. The shop. 15 random items on the shelf, refreshable for 10 points, everything from vegetable seeds to miracles. Cultivation. I could send a disciple wandering the world and collect points off their adventures. And external affairs. My systems scattered missions across the map, bounties on bandits and monsters, paid in reputation. Reputation points were the currency of my everything. I had 50. A pack of 3 spirit peach saplings cost 25. Each tree would fruit 60 peaches a year, 540 stones of steady income for a sect currently worth 23. I stared at that listing like a starving man at a menu. But before shopping, I needed to do the thing I'd been putting off. I needed to talk to my son. I wanted on my record that I tried to do this gently. I floated to Fu Lin's study at midnight and spoke into his mind. Fu Lin, it's your father. He drew his sword at the empty room. Fair, I'd have stabbed me too. It took me a while. I recited things only I could know, the name he almost got, the pond he fell into at 6, where his mother hid the wine. He came to my sealed cave and stood outside the barrier while I spoke from the darkness, and I fed him the official version. My breakthrough is at a critical stage. I cannot leave the cave, but my spirit can now reach out. Not entirely my lie. My breakthrough was at a very critical stage, the stage where it had killed me. I didn't tell my son I was dead. What would that do except break the only people still holding this place up? A father in eternal seclusion is a pillar. My ghost, announced, would be a funeral. I chose pillar. I'd choose it again. And then my son knelt outside my cave and gave me the report I'd slept through, and I learned how you lose 1,000 disciples in 30 years. 13 years ago, the Devil Path came to Lushan Prefecture. 3 sovereigns, the Rakshasa Ghost Lord, the Heavenly Corpse Taoist, and the Blood Demon Tao Ancestor, with thousands of demon-worshipping cultivators behind them. The prefecture burned. My sect stood its ground because I built it that way and paid the full price for my architecture. All 8 of my foundation establishment elders died. The Blood Demon Tao Ancestor sacrificed them alive into a ghost banner, their souls, my friends' souls, stuffed screaming into a flag. 900 disciples died or fled. The Celestial Pivot Institute finally arrived, killed 2 sovereigns, chased the blood demon off half-crippled. Too late for me. Even my spirit vein took a wound, dropping a full rank. The mountain itself got poorer. And my wife, my Wen Yuxuan, she was 16 years younger than me, a heavenly root genius, crystallization stage, the only person alive who could out-argue me. She held this sect together for the first decade of my seclusion. On the 12th year, she left the mountain, following some lead, nobody knew what, and never came back. No body, no message, no trace. 12 years of my children searching, and the trail was stone cold. I'm going to be honest with you, and then we're never speaking of it again. I'm a 200-year-old dead man, and I floated in that cave after my son left, and if ghosts could cry, I would have. Yuxuan, where are you? Okay, moving on. I had my sect to save. The last piece of bad news, the one that stayed with me, was about my daughter. 6 years before my death, a foundation establishment pill came up for sale, 11,000 stones. The sect sold nearly every artifact it owned to buy that one pill, and everyone agreed Mei Ling should take it. Youngest, most talented, dual spiritual roots. The pill gave her a 50-50 chance. She lost the flip, and I slept through it. The pill burned out, the breakthrough failed, and my daughter came out of that cave carrying the guilt of 11,000 stones the sect didn't have. That's where the depression started. Not from weakness, from the math. She'd done the math on what her failure cost everyone she loved, and the math never stopped running in her head. So my first miracle as a ghost was small, and it was for the sect, and my second was for her. I bought the 3 peach saplings and materialized them in front of Fu Lin, who watched fruit trees appear out of thin air and adjusted his entire worldview in about 4 seconds. Father's methods, of course. Plant them. 17-year-old An Shu Ying, my garden keeper, remember that name, the girl was going to matter, tucked those saplings into the medicine garden like they were made of glass. And for my Mei Ling, I went shopping in the mine department. The shop had an item called Firm Tao Heart, 50 points. I bought it, aimed it at my daughter, and fired. I watched her status line rewrite itself. Tao Heart, lost, gone. Condition, healthy. And I watched my girl, who had been staring at the same half-finished blade in her forge for 3 days, suddenly straighten her back, pick up the hammer, and start working. That night, she asked her brother for the mission listings, first time in 6 years. I floated outside her window like a fool and let myself feel it. There was a side effect, and I logged it with mixed feelings. The system rebuilt her Tao heart, but apparently the factory default personality setting is aloof. My warm little girl came out the other side cool as a winter lake. Calm, precise, terrifyingly focused. I hovered there having complicated feelings about it. You know what? Fine. Alive and aloof beats gentle and drowning. I'll take it. I did take it. My daughter's first mission back. 36 tree hollow foxes terrorizing the farms around small stone town. Livestock gone, a farmhand mauled, the town pooling coin it didn't have for help it couldn't rank. Bounty on my board, 121 reputation points. She took Wen Ruolan with her black gold net, her own student Wang Zixuan, a serious boy with a heavy practice ethic and no artifact to his name. So they dug the last mystic iron flying sword out of the literally empty treasury for him, and he received that dented antique like a state treasure, which tells you everything about both the boy and the treasury. Plus 4 juniors who'd never left the mountain on real business. She ran it like a textbook she was writing on the spot, and I hovered over every page. 2 days of watching the Warrens first. Foxes are ambushers. You don't chase ambushers, you out-ambush them. Then bait, a tethered goat and a trail of blood scent leading into a throat of land between 2 ridges. Then the funnel. Juniors on the ridgelines with noise and flame to keep the flanks closed. Ji Xuan holding the mouth of the draw, herself at the choke point. The pack flowed in after the goat like water finding a drain, Wen Ruolan's net came down across the exit, and what followed was 4 minutes of extremely organized disappointment for 36 foxes. 0 injuries on my side. The goat also made it, which mattered a great deal to the youngest junior. They rode home with 70 stones of fox pelts, and one very confused junior asking the question of the decade. That's it? That's what the town couldn't handle? That's it, kid. The gap between can't and easy is called competence, and it used to live here. My standards were coming back. The town saw them off at the gate with the whole population waving, and my daughter, who 2 months prior couldn't finish a blade, flew point the entire way home. Oh, and before she left, I did one more thing. She'd handed her sword away to be sold, so I had Fulin hand it back with a message from father. A father's gift is not for sale. She held that blade for a long moment with a face that didn't move at all, aloof as a statue, and then she tied it to her belt with hands that were extremely not aloof about it. The points came in, my shop refreshed. And the machine, the beautiful, grinding, money-printing machine of the Qingshan Sect's second life, began to turn. Here's the thing they don't tell you about running a sect from beyond the grave. It's a farming game. Everyone imagines immortal cultivation is all flying swords and duels in the moonlight. No, it's rice. It's rice yields and irrigation and whether the fish pond turns a profit. I died as the strongest sword cultivator in Chu Country and got reincarnated as an agricultural subsidy program, and I refused to be embarrassed about how much I loved it. My autumn harvest came in at 3,300 caddies of jade crystal rice. We expanded the fields by 15 acres and bought 50 spotted ducks to eat the pests, which cost almost nothing and made the fields look like a painting. Jin Hai hauled the rice 900 li to Qinghe Market on rented pack beasts, and on the road 6 bandits led by a scar-faced chi refining thug tried to shake him down. And the pack beasts, these enormous, placid Ta Yun beasts, simply ran away from the fight with the entire cargo, at speed, leaving the bandits chasing dust and Jin Hai laughing so hard he almost fell off. It wasn't a battle, it was a logistics demonstration. Meanwhile, the system dangled a new mission, a school of green-tailed spirit fish, 500 strong counting the egg carriers, migrating towards Small Cloud Lake. Catch them alive, seed my own Yanyang Lake, start a fishery. The bounty included something that made my ghost heart skip, an evil warding divine thunder talisman, a one-shot lightning strike with a bonus against demons and ghosts. Remember that item, it's going to save a life. The fishing trip was where Lu Shulian announced herself to me, sect orphan, water and wood roots, 3rd layer of chi refining, a quiet girl who'd been informally mothering every duck, fish, and stray on the mountain for years while nobody thought to write it down. The mission brief was almost comic. 11 cultivators dispatched to commit armed fishing, until you did the fine print. Catch 500 spirit fish alive in open water without bruising the egg carriers, then keep them alive for 3 days of overland haul. Killing is easy, fishing is logistics. Shulian ran the water, and I ran out of skepticism. She stood on the shore of Small Cloud Lake, opened her jade clarity cloud water art, and cast it over an entire section of lake like a glass lid, and held a lake shut. The school hit her barrier and turned. The kingfish, 9th of its little layer, and furious, rammed the curtain over and over while she swayed on the shore like a reed taking wind, and did not let go. And Wang Zixuan's netting teams worked the penned water in 3 calm layers, lifting the school out batch by batch into the waiting barrels. Not one fish lost, not one egg carrier harmed. Textbook. Except there was no textbook. She was improvising the whole discipline in real time. Then, the part nobody assigned her, which is the part I remember. 3 days home by cart, 500 spirit fish slowly suffocating in still barrels, so she fed them. Her own spiritual energy trickled into the water, barrel by barrel, hour after hour, day and night, well past the point any senior would have told her to stop. She walked through my gates on the 3rd evening on pure stubbornness, saw the fish released safely into Yanyang Lake, and fainted where she stood. The sect got a fishery. Shulian got carried to bed, slept 2 days, and woke up famous. And I opened her file, wrote Future Beast Tamer next to her name, and started budgeting. My mountain keeps handing me its overlooked children, and I keep finding out they're load-bearing. and I got my talisman, plus enough points to try my first real gamble. The shop had an item called Resource Optimization, 50 points, 50% chance to upgrade a resource by a full rank. I aimed it at my spirit fields and rolled the dice. First-order fields became second-order fields under my thumb. The rice became second-order rice. Annual income doubled on the spot. I was still doing my victory lap around my mountain when the fields taught me the tuition fee. 10 days later, the pests leveled up too. Out of the upgraded patties came a mantis locust insect king. Waist-high to a man, chi refining third layer, with 2 scythe arms that qualified as first-rank artifacts in their own right. It carved up 2 field guards before anyone understood what was happening. Mei Ling got there first, and I learned what it feels like to be a ghost watching your child fight. The insect king was fast. She traded 3 exchanges with it, and on the 4th, a scythe came in at her face from the blind side, and Li Ziqi screamed right, and I lunged. I actually lunged, 200 years of sword instinct firing down arms that don't exist, and my hands went through the world like it was fog. I couldn't do anything. I hung there, useless as regret, while the scythe came down. She wasn't there. Aloof, I learned, comes with reflexes. She'd read it, slipped it, and her flying sword took the scythe arm off at the joint on the counter. The king bolted, the disciples ringed it and cut it down. She stood over it and coolly declared the sides salvageable, good for 2 mid-grade artifacts. My daughter looted the thing that almost killed her before her heart rate came down. That's my girl. That's also a memo I filed away in fire. Reputation points in the bank are worthless. The next time something swung at my children, I'd be holding a talisman. My lesson 2, cheaper, warn people before I upgrade their workplace. Winter went to the forge and the garden, and I haunted both like a supervisor with no office hours. Mei Ling reforged the Insect King's sides into twin azure violet blades and gave them to the 2 field guards it had wounded. 3 years of watching rice, and now they had artifacts of their own. An Shouying got drafted into my longest project yet. The sect had 0 alchemists, we'd had 8 before the fall. And the girl had a fire root, a garden keeper's plant knowledge, and the exact species of stubbornness alchemy requires. Mei Ling handed her 7 foundational texts, plus my own annotated Qingxi notes, and I bought her a shop perk called Diligent and Studious, which is a fancy way of saying the girl started studying to the last inch of every candle and retaining all of it. My sect started sleeping to the smell of burnt practice pills. Best smell in my 2 worlds, and I've smelled immortal incense. Smells like a future. And then my shop refreshed and dropped the item that broke the whole game open. Spiritual Root Enhancement, 100 points. Raises one person's spiritual root by an entire grade. You have to understand what roots mean, and forgive me the lecture. Your spiritual root is your engine, installed at birth, no refunds. Dual roots beat triple roots. Single heavenly roots beat everything. Cultivators spend fortunes on pills that improve their engine by 1%. And here was my system selling a full engine swap for 100 points. I bought it, and I pointed it at my eldest. Fulin's wood-earth dual roots dissolved, recrystallized, and came out as a pure wood heavenly spiritual root. Top of the chart. The kind of talent that gets you kidnapped by great sects, in a good way. He felt my gift land in the middle of drinking tea. My dignified 53-year-old sect leader, the man who sighs at account books, looked at his own hands and said, and I quote, "Holy crap." "Language," I said. Then he bowed to the empty air about 9 times while I explained the new rules of his life. My rule 1, tell no one, not even your siblings, not yet. A heavenly root in a weak sect isn't a blessing, it's a bounty poster. My rule 2, cultivate like the mountain is on fire, because my deadline was real. In 10 years, the sect's century of registered protection expired, and with it came a summons. The Celestial Pivot Institute would call on us, as a registered sect, to do my duty, suppress a beast tide, or burn out a demon nest. Show up weak, and the world would know the Qingshan sect was an empty shell. Sects that get outed as empty shells stop existing shortly afterward. 10 years to go from 23 spirit stones to an army. No pressure. Which is when the emergency flare went up and my quiet quarter ended. Zhao Min, the disciple I'd sent out wandering, 21 years old, windwood roots, a boy with an almost inconvenient hatred of injustice. sent a distress signal from a town 200 li east. A demonic cultivator was harvesting people. Zhao Min had tried to intervene, because of course he had, and gotten hurt for it. The system posted the kill mission before the ink on his blood was dry. My Jin Hai wanted to go alone. Jin Hai always wants to go alone. It's his love language. Father overruled him through Fu Lin and packed him 3 disciples. Wen Ruolun, Wang Zixuan, Zhou Jian. And I did something I'd been too stingy to do before. Spent 5 points on instant teleportation and arrived on site ahead of my own rescue team, invisible, to scout the target. The target was worse than the mission text. Wei Kai, an old man from the demon cave lineage of Qi State, the blood demon Dao ancestors school, the same filth that murdered my elders and stuffed their souls in a flag. And he was here doing craft work in the family style, finishing a 7 Fiends Ghost Yin banner, a weapon powered by 7 bound spirits of the late Qi refining stage, each spirit a murdered cultivator who doesn't get to stop screaming. He had 6. I floated through his cellar the night before my team arrived and watched him complete the set. A traveling family of 6, and a hired guard who fought hard enough to matter for about 4 breaths. I hung there through all of it with no hands to stop it. The second time being dead has made me a witness when I needed to be a weapon. And when it was over, I read the banner's count, 7 of 7, and I put Wei Kai's name at the top of a very short list I keep. The list has excellent turnover. My team hit him at my signal at dawn on the road out of town, and it went sideways fast, because a completed banner is a different weapon than an incomplete one. He snapped it open, and the 7 ghosts came off the cloth like smoke with knives in it. No bodies to cut, no formation to break, just cold hands and hate moving at the speed of grief. Wen Ruolan cast her black gold heavenly net over 2 of them and learned the hard way that nets want substance. A 3rd ghost passed through her guard and through her shoulder, and the net was ripped from her grip as she went down white-faced with frost spreading from the wound. Wang Zixuan dragged her clear. Zhou Jian's bamboo sword swept ghosts into wisps that simply reformed. And Jin Hai planted himself at the center with the blazing fire sword box roaring. Fire being the one honest language ghosts respect. Burning through his charges triple speed, holding 3 spirits at bay on flame and pure stubbornness, while the old demon watched from inside a barrier of slow red light. A blood river scripture shield. Golden core cultivators think twice about those. And Wei Kai, seeing 4 Qi refining children pinned in his web, did what his kind always does. He started the gloating speech. The one about ants and inevitability. They always budget time for the speech. Nobody budgets for me. The dead man in the room. I had 6 evil-warding divine thunder charges banked, purchased 1 frugal refresh at a time across 2 years, and I unloaded the entire account out of thin air. The first 3 bolts hit the Blood River barrier in one overlapping roar, and it shattered like a dropped cup. Wei Kai's speech ended mid-syllable. The next 3 I walked across the banner itself, and this part I want on the record. Divine Thunder is exactly the right tool for a ghost banner. It doesn't disperse bound spirits, it releases them. The banner burned to clean ash, and 7 screaming souls stopped screaming, one by one, like candles being pinched out into rest. The family of 6 went wherever the unbound go. Small mercy, delivered by my lightning. It's what I had. I'd have given more. Wei Kai came out of the smoke charred and crawling, eyes rolling wildly for the Golden Core expert who must be attacking him. The barrier said Golden Core, the precision said Golden Core, and the empty sky said nothing at all. He was still doing that math when Jin Hai, freshly and invisibly hit with a critical strike buff, crossed the smoke in 2 steps and put a flame-wreathed sword through the equation. Silence. Drifting ash. 4 disciples staring at the scorch marks of divine lightning from a clear dawn sky. And Wen Ruolan, gray-lipped, holding her frosted shoulder, whispered the question of the day. What senior just saved us? I've been waiting years, in 2 lives, for a setup that clean. I opened a voice channel to Jin Hai and said, I am your father. My second son's face did things I will treasure for the rest of my death. Then he got outraged, genuinely, deeply outraged, that his older brother had known about father's return first. He sulked about the sibling ranking of a supernatural revelation. That's my Jin Hai in one sentence, and I wouldn't trade him for a nascent soul heir. The cleanup told me what we'd killed: 243 victims across 36 families. In an empty barrel in the cellar, 2 survivors, twins, 6 years old, a girl and a boy, Su Xiaoyu and Su Xiaohai, hidden there by their schoolteacher father before Wei Kai took him. The sect took them home. Nobody even discussed it. And the loot included one more thing, a mission continuation. 3 more demon cave rats had slipped into Guangde County and gone to ground among 97,000 civilians. Guangde was ours, the county the sect had guarded for generations, the reason the old texts call us a righteous sect and not just a business with swords. Which meant, first, a reunion I hadn't been ready for. Our third elder, Zhao Longwei, held that city. 115 years old, qi refining 8th layer, a realm most men hold for a lifetime hobby, and he'd spent his entire one standing on Guangdo's wall. 13 years since the Great Chaos without a single day off the post, keeping the city's defensive array warm, screening travelers, being the whole visible presence of a sect that could no longer afford to be present. When Fulin arrived with the strike team, the old man came down from the wall to meet him, and I floated behind my son and looked at what 13 years of unrelieved duty does to a face I remembered as young. They talked logistics first, because soldiers do. And then, seeing his sect leader off, the old man smiled. Actually smiled, easy as sunrise. And he said the thing I'm going to be quoting for the rest of my death. At my age, sect leader, I've started counting how many more times I'll see your face. 12, maybe, if the roads stay kind. So forgive an old man for looking a moment longer. He said it with no self-pity at all. Inventory, not complaint. My son didn't manage an answer for 3 full seconds, which for my son is a paralysis. Write Zhao Longwei's name down for me, too. On the other list, the good one, the one where I pay debts with interest. And hold my thought, because I do. My demon hunt in Guangde was less a battle than a detective story, and I make an obscene ghost detective. My setup? 97,000 civilians, 1,300 registered cultivators, and 3 needles in that haystack who could look like anyone. The city's defenses were real, a third-order anti-demon fire array installed by the Celestial Pivot after the Great Chaos, and a screening mirror that reads auras at the gate. So the plan was a full lockdown and re-registration. Every cultivator in the county walks past the mirror finds the rot. Sound plan. One problem, which I discovered on my first invisible sweep of the market square. The rats had a chi concealing bead, a demon cave relic that wraps their auras in borrowed innocence. 3 demons could stroll past that mirror whistling. But here's the thing about a concealing bead. It hides your aura. It does not hide your mouth. And no conversation in this world is private from me. I found them by doing what I now do best, loitering. 3 days of drifting through tea houses and alleys, and in the corner of a crowded square, I caught 3 unremarkable men having a very remarkable conversation, at a whisper, about how the registration was a joke and the bead made them untouchable, and how patient they'd be once the lockdown eased. Gentlemen, you could have fooled the mirror forever. You could not stop performing your own confession to an empty patch of air. The arrest was my choreography. I gave my son faces, positions, and the bead carrier's name. We let all 3 walk into the registration hall on the busiest day in front of half the city's cultivators, witnesses being the point, and when the leader Chen Hong laid his hand on the registry, Fu Lin took him alive across the desk in one movement. The other 2 bolted into the crowd, which was exactly the script. Zhao Longwei, waiting at the mirror array, burned them both out of the crowd through the city's own defense grid, precise as a man swatting flies with a sunbeam. 2 pillars of red fire, 2 heaps of ash, not one civilian scorched. Under the leader's mask, a boy's face with a skull branded into the brow. Demon Cave marks its property young. His last words, spat across the desk, were that way-old demon, a core formation elder of their line, would not forgive this. Fine, I added him to my list. It's a short list, but it's getting quality names. I came home to good news for once, wearing 6-year-old disguises. The twins settled into my sect the way rescued children do. The boy shadowing his sister everywhere, the sister watching every adult with the flat wariness of someone who learned about adults from a barrel. The disciples adopted them instantly and completely. Extra portions appeared, someone carved them practice swords, when Roland appointed herself loud aunt from her sickbed. And then the system finished its appraisal of my newest members, and I nearly dropped my ghostly composure. The boy, Su Xiaohai, water-earth dual roots, solid, trainable, a good, honest engine. And the girl, Su Xiaoyu, an ice-mutated spiritual root, heavenly grade, a variant root, not one of the 5 ordinary elements, but a rare fork off the tree entirely, the kind of talent most sects go a full century without laying eyes on, the kind that great powers quietly go to war over. The 6-year-old we pulled out of a murderer's cellar in a barrel was carrying a lottery ticket in her spine, and nobody alive knew it but me. I told exactly one person, my daughter, and Mei Ling, who knows precisely what it is to be the talented girl a struggling sect pins its arithmetic on, went and took Xiao Yu as her personal student that same day, on her own terms, not as an asset, as a child. The apprenticeship bow was performed with such ferocious 6-year-old commitment that she nearly headbutted the floorboards, while her brother stage-whispered corrections from the side. Deeper, bow, deeper, until the aloof swordswoman of the Qingshan sect was observed by multiple witnesses to almost smile. Xiaohai went to An Shouying's garden to grow up among the herbs, where he immediately began asking the kinds of questions that make alchemists either proud or exhausted. One problem I filed for later: an ice root needs an ice technique, and my library, looted by 3 decades of decline, had none. I added it to my shopping list. Everything ends up on my shopping list. My shopping list is undefeated. One piece of bad news, hiding behind the good: Wen Ruolan's shoulder wound wasn't healing. The ghost that hit her had left something behind, and her status read, afflicted by serious illness, lifespan greatly reduced. The doctors talked around me in the careful voices doctors use when they mean start saying goodbye. Here's what you need to know about my Wen Ruolan. Her 2 older brothers were among the 8 elders who died holding the gate 13 years ago so my children could pull the disciples out. Her family had already paid the Liu family's debts once, in full, in blood. Not twice, not while I hold the wallet. I bought healing from the shop, stood invisible by her sickbed like the world's most useless nurse, and burned it. Status: recovering. 2 weeks later, she was in the training yard yelling at juniors again, louder than before, and if anyone noticed the ghost doing a quiet lap of celebration around the yard, they kept it to themselves. That winter, I made the most boring decision of my afterlife, and one of the best. I went to sleep. Closed-door cultivation 1 full year. It paid 12 reputation points a month, and the Sect's engine ran fine without me hovering. Fields growing, Shouying studying, children cultivating on their shiny new advantages. But before I lay down, I did 2 pieces of scouting that would shape the next 5 years, and I need to tell you about the second one carefully, because it's the reason everything that follows happened the way it did. The first was routine for me. A bamboo grove north of us full of cyan jade bamboo, sword-grade material, guarded by a demon wolf. Bounty plus a formation manual. Fine, noted. The second was a red dot on my map, 1,300 li west, at the edge of the Yanhuang Desert. A hidden mission, the system's first ever, marked in a color I hadn't seen it use, which is the interface equivalent of a raised eyebrow. So I went to look. Personally. Which meant half a month of floating cross-country at ghost speed, over farmland, over hills, over one extremely long stretch of absolutely nothing, complaining the entire way. I spent my first life crossing this distance in an afternoon on a sword, and you'd think dying would at least come with decent travel options. It does not. Being a ghost is all access and no legroom. The dot resolved, when I finally hauled myself there, into the ruins of a dead sect on Chongming Mountain. Collapsed halls, a name worn off its own gate, the particular silence of a place that lost. And in its flooded mountain cave, coiled around the reason for the red dot, lived the current owner, a blackwater mystic snake. 100 jong of armored malice, thick as my gatehouse, first order in name only. Its bloodline ran to a 3rd order species, its raw strength already matched a 9th layer cultivator, and its hide, as we would one day confirm at considerable expense, laughed at lightning. I floated around it in slow circles, safe as a rumor, while it slept in its black water. And it was guarding a tree, heavenly azure divine wood. If you don't know the name, take it from me. It's the ancestor of the Foundation Establishment pill. Meditate beneath that wood, and a chi-refining cultivator at the peak has a 70% chance of breaking through. 80 with a wood root, and failure costs nothing. No pill roulette. No 11,000 stone coin flips like the one that broke my daughter. A guaranteed safe door to Foundation establishment, growing wild in a ruin, guarded by a monster. The catch, because in my experience there's always a catch. The system's countdown said the snake would finish devouring the tree's roots within 5 years, absorb it, and evolve into a second-order horror. 5 years for me to build a force strong enough to kill a monster that could currently eat my entire sect as a light lunch. The bounty for doing it: 695 points, plus a heart method I recognized, and a chance to change my family's fate. I went to sleep like a man setting an alarm for my own war. 1 year later, I woke up rich, over 1,000 banked points, to a sect that had quietly turned the corner. Income up, deficit gone, treasury growing. The harvest had doubled again, the fish were breeding, and my kids had kept every plate spinning without me, which a father notices, and a father remembers. I came out spending. My bamboo grove first, Black Mountain, a stand of 132 cyan jade bamboo, living sword material, held by a purple-spotted demon wolf at the 7th layer that had made the mountain a no-go zone for years. Jin Hai led the team. Wang Zixuan, Zhou Jian, Han Bo, and An Xiuying, drafted because she was the only one who knew how to dig up a spirit plant without killing it. The plan was tidy. The wolf declined to read it. It came out of the thicket at the digger, the softest target, the girl elbow-deep in roots, with a roar that hit like a physical slap and froze half the squad where they stood. Sonic Stun, a demon wolf's opening move, and it works. I watched 4 trained cultivators lose a full second to their own rattled skulls, while a quarter-ton of muscle and malice arced down at An Xiuying's back. Wang Zixuan broke the freeze first, got between them a half-second before Jin Hai did, and took the full raking blow across the chest. The blow that opens a chi-refining cultivator like a letter. It rang off him like a bell. My golden light armor. The prize from the demon hunt, which I'd made sure went to the front line and not into a display case. The wolf rebounded off its own certainty. An Xiuying rolled clear and came up with her snow rainbow bottle blazing. A beam of green light that pinned the beast mid-leap like a moth on a board. And Jin Hai's sword box opened all 6 fire streams at a target that suddenly couldn't dodge. What was left went on a stretcher of its own pelt. Afterward, Zhu Xuan stood looking at the 4 bright claw grooves plowed across the gold on his chest, and said, quietly, "If not for father's armor, I'd still be on that hill." Yes, boy, that's the point of armor. It's also, for the record, the point of father's. They brought me home 129 living bamboo plants for a future grove. Jin Hai snapped one in transit through sheer impatience and got billed for it in mockery for a month. 1 dead wolf for the forge, and, I want this in the record, for the kitchen. Wolf stew with fresh bamboo shoots. The sect ate its enemy with vegetables. Morale soared. Cuisine may be the most underrated pillar of sect management. I said what I said, and I'll say it again. My daughter turned the wolf into gear. A mother and 9 sons blade set for Jin Hai. 1 mother blade, 9 flying children, top of the first order. And the wolf's pelt, shredded artistically by its own last battle, became a tiny spell robe for little Xiao Yu, who wore it everywhere, including, reportedly, to bed. 4 fresh green bamboo swords went to the core disciples. Wang Zixuan finally, ceremonially retired the embarrassing mystic iron sword. The sect was starting to look armed. Then the desert, and I still get chills telling this part, so I'm going to take my time. 26 sandstorm beasts had been eating caravans along the Yanhuang trade road, months' travel west, past the last green. The team rode out 5,000 li and made base in a dust-blown town called Dongsha, where they fell in with a merchant caravan out of Guangde, whose chatty boss, Zhang Shihong, recognized their sect crest and nearly wept on their shoulders. The beasts had been bleeding his root white. Their first engagement, with me watching the flanks, was an ambush on the caravan itself. 14 beasts boiling out of a dune wall at dusk. And the new green bamboo swords earned their forge fees in 20 minutes of clean, drilled formation work. 14 dead beasts, 0 casualties. 1 merchant boss upgrading my sect from clients to religion. He sold the carcasses for the team at market rate, gifted them the recipe for a gathering sand lure. an artifact of beast bone that calls sandstorm beasts home. And thereby, without knowing it, the man earned himself a friend the size of a sect. Remember Zhang Xihong? Merchants, in my long experience, remember debts better than kings. Because 14 of 26 is not 26, and Wen Ruolan said so, standing over the carcasses. We finished the count. So Mei Ling forged 2 lures from the bone recipe, and the team baited a straggler and tracked it home across the Dune Sea to the nest. A sandstone warren holding the remaining 12, including the Pack King, a monster at the peak of the 6th layer with a hide like slabbed masonry. The nest fight got ugly for exactly 1 moment, and I swear I aged a year of death watching it, and the moment had Wang Zixuan's name on it again. The boy collects them. The king came through the melee at full gallop and caught him square, a ram like a falling wall, and he went backward through a dune crest, coughing blood into his own collar. And Wen Ruolan, fully healed from the ghost wound, fully briefed by fate on what almost losing her costs this family, and fully, incandescently furious, met the king's follow-up charge with her crimson silk and took its front leg off at the knee. The team fell on it from 3 sides and buried it in blades. Zixuan sat up in the sand, checked his ribs, and started looting before he finished bleeding. I'm telling you, my sect breeds a type. And then, digging out the nest for salvage, under the scattered bones of some nameless cultivator the beasts had eaten years ago, they found a lump of metal about 100 caddies in weight. Dull purple gold, warm, I could feel it even dead in the cold desert night, humming very faintly, like it was thinking. Nobody on the team recognized it. I recognized it from 400 li away, because I'd chased rumors of it half my first life when my system pinged. Heavenly Fire, purple gold, copper. The legendary forging metal of the Heavenly Fire Palace, from the far side of the Qingli Sea. The one material in this world you need to forge a natal flying sword under the Taiyi Tianshu sword art. The metal element's supreme art I'd spent my whole first life wishing I owned. And the desert mission's completion reward, waiting in my inbox, the Taiyi Tianshu sword art itself. A sword art that grows a blade inside your own glabella. A natal sword fed on your essence that levels up with you for life, that no one can steal or disarm. I handed the manual to Fu Lin and Mei Ling the day they got home. Metal and wood roots could bear it. Jinhai's fire alignment couldn't, and I watched him absorb that news like a man told the buffet closed 1 customer ahead of him. Patience, second son, your line was coming. 2 children with heavenly roots, a supreme sword art, and the exact legendary metal it required, dug out of a monster nest by accident. Sometimes the heavens just hand you one. You say thank you, and you train. Because the snake's clock was ticking. 4 years left. Now watch my machine compound. This next stretch is why I love farming games. My 3rd harvest came in at 8,000 caddies of second-order rice, 4 times the sect's entire old annual income in 1 caravan. That caravan rolled into Qinghe Market and straight past the stall of the Hengyue sect, and their spies' faces went through a whole opera. Quick context on Hengyue. Their founding Golden Core ancestor once tried to kill me over a treasure dispute. It went poorly for him, permanently. His sect has spent the decades since praying for my extinction, and the sight of the corpse-poor Qingshan sect suddenly moving second-order goods by the ton was, for them, theological horror. They tried whisper campaigns, our spirit fish clog your meridians, don't buy, and got bulldozed by the free market because Zhang Xihong of the Datong Chamber of Commerce, the caravan boss my team had saved in the desert, publicly bought the entire fish shipment in one go and announced that rumors stop at the Y's. The Hengyue spies stood there with the expression of men who had eaten something worse than nothing. My An Ying passed her alchemy exam, 3 pills from her first real furnace, a 50% success rate, which for a first furnace is obscene, and became my sect's first registered alchemist in a generation. When she learned from the notes that the reclusive ancestor had personally written her textbook and had been the voice coaching her, she came to my cave and kowtowed to the rock. The rock and I were both moved. I checked on the rock. The peach trees fruited, 182 spirit peaches. We didn't sell a single one. Every disciple got 3. Xu Ying ate one and broke through on the spot, mid-bite. Somewhere in the ledger of small, good decisions, "Don't sell the peaches" is underlined twice in my handwriting. And then Guangde County flared again, and this one I don't joke about, even now. The second distress signal in 90 years. A goo sorcerer, a cultivator who grows venomous spirit insects inside living human bodies, had killed over 100 people, and when Zhao Longwei intervened, the old man won the fight, but tore his last reserves doing it. His status, when I checked it, read blood and qi decay. Remaining lifespan, roughly 1 year. The city held its breath. I sent everything. Jinhai, Mei Ling, my full first squad, and I rode along, because a system alert with Guangde in it gets my full attention. The sorcerer called himself Mo Xian Shi, and finding him wasn't the hard part. You follow the missing person reports upstream like a current. The hard part started when Jinhai kicked in the door of his farmhouse lair and the walls moved. Not figuratively, the walls were coated in goo insects, a living wallpaper of them, and they came off in a wave with a sound like rain falling upward. Fire held them. Barely. Jinhai planted himself at the front with his sword box roaring flame in 6 streams, burning a corridor through the swarm, and the squad advanced down that corridor like miners behind a lantern. The sorcerer waited at the far end, a stooped old man with kind eyes and a pouch of bone needles, and I want you to understand what those needles were. He grew them inside people. That was his art. His whole career was other people's bodies used as flower pots, over 100 dead in this county alone, and he stood there among his crops, looking mildly inconvenienced. His needles came at my people first, poisoned, fast, fired in fans of 9. Wen Ruolan caught one on her net, and the metal strands hissed where it touched. Then the counterattack proper. Mei Ling's flying sword opened his shoulder to the bone, a wound that would have ended most chi-refining cultivators, and the old man rolled his eyes at it. Actually rolled his eyes as the flesh crawled shut. A regeneration art, fed by a fistful of healing pills he tossed into his mouth like roasted beans. Then another fistful. He ate pills the way other men breathe. Jinhai, holding 3 streams of sword fire and a grudge, voiced the question on everyone's mind at full battlefield volume. Does he think pills are free? For an hour, I watched a war of inventories. Our fire against his swarm, our blades against his regrowth, his needles against my shields. The squad was winning, slowly, the way water wins. His pill pouch was thinning, his swarm was ash, his regeneration was coming slower each time, and I could see the exact moment he did the arithmetic and stopped fighting to win. That's when he reached into his robe and pulled out the trump card that stopped my dead heart. A divine firmament edict. A one-use token from the Divine Firmament Palace, loaded with a 9 heavens divine thunder. Golden core-grade lightning in a disposable wrapper. The kind of treasure a dirt-robed goo farmer has absolutely no right to own, which told me, in one flash of intuition, that this man had a sponsor, and that his sponsor's problems were about to become my problems. Later. Because he aimed it at Mei Ling. I screamed, "Run!" down my family channel, and the world went white. The thundercloud formed in half a breath, a funnel of ink and silver right above my daughter, too fast to outrun, and both of us knew it. I saw her look up at a sky full of falling thunder and close her eyes. Not in fear, in apology, one last reflexive accounting. I'm sorry, this will cost the sect. The same math that had been running in her head since the failed pill, arriving at its final line. I slammed 50 points into a shop item called Fatal Block, faster than I have ever done anything, alive or dead. The thunder hit a barrier that hadn't existed a heartbeat earlier, and broke around my daughter like water on glass. The shockwave flattened the grass in a ring around her boots. Her hair didn't move. She opened her eyes, alive, confused, billing me later, presumably. And the old sorcerer stared at his spent edict, then at the untouched girl, with the face of a gambler watching the house take his last coin. And then my family did what my family does to people who aim lightning at us. Mei Ling crossed the burned ground in 2 steps and cut him in half at the waist. Wen Ruolun took his head on the follow-through. 4 seconds, start to finish, and the only sound after was Jinhai's sword fire guttering out and someone being sick in the hedge, because it had been that kind of day. The loot mattered twice to me. Once for the obvious, a second divine firmament edict, intact. I earmarked it instantly for the snake. Plus, the sorcerer's hoard, including 3 golden silkworms, ancient spirit insects thought extinct, half dead and harmless looking, whose silk can't be cut or burned, and whose adults can puppet a nascent soul cultivator from the inside. We fed them mulberry leaves and resolved very hard to be nice to them. And once for the quiet thing. I still had longevity extensions sitting in the shop. 100 points plus 5 years of life. I'd been saving points like a miser all year. I looked at the item, thought about a 115-year-old man who counted his remaining glimpses of my son's face, and bought it. Zhao Longwei felt 5 years settle back into his bones in the middle of his evening tea, alone on the wall of the city he'd guarded for 13 years. He put down the cup, faced the direction of Green Lotus Mountain, and bowed to the mountain, and stayed down a long time. He didn't know who to thank. That's fine. I knew who he was thanking. That one wasn't strategy. Some purchases are just correct. The sorcerer's real name, we learned, was Wei Tianming, a fallen disciple of the divine firmament palace itself, corrupted out by the lost vortex demons. Which explained my next visitors. 3 palace disciples arrived at my gate with formal thanks, which was already an event. The divine firmament palace is a golden core power. Their juniors don't usually make courtesy calls on chi refining sects. They came with gifts, with the sect's official gratitude for removing their embarrassing ex-member, and with a very deliberate decision not to ask for the edict we'd looted, which told me their handlers understood manners. And then, tea finished, they unrolled the actual agenda. Their sect had a second traitor loose in my prefecture. Luo Xuan, 9th layer, also lightning-armed, worse than the first. And the palace would much rather he died quietly, locally, at the hands of the sect that had already demonstrated a talent for this exact chore, than let the news of 2 rogue disciples in 1 decade go touring the great sects. Payment for the housekeeping, 3 more divine firmament edicts. I nearly accepted before they finished the sentence. Let me lay out the math I did at the speed of greed. Lightning tokens, the exact ordnance I was stockpiling for the snake, 3 of them, as payment for killing a man already on my list for the crime of existing near my children's county? Gentlemen, gift wrap him. My son negotiated 1 professional beat of hesitation for dignity's sake and took the contract. Their leader, Qin Jie, was a straightforward young man with good eyes. Keep half a glance on him, too. He's going to matter to this family in a way none of us saw coming. My Luo Xuan hunt turned into the night the prefecture learned to fear my daughter, and it started with a town that wasn't there anymore. The palace had a tracking method, a soul-chasing insect keyed to incense planted on the traitor. And it led my joint squad to Tianshui town, 3,000 souls, market day distance from the main road. Except there was no market, no dogs barking, no smoke from 3,000 chimneys. The squad walked in through an open gate and found the whole town arranged in the square, and I will give you the merciful version. Luo Xuan had needed a great deal of blood to feed something called an evil moon treasure wheel, and he had not gone shopping for it politely. Even the palace trio, professionals hunting their own sex garbage, went gray around the mouth. Qin Jie stood in that square with his fists shaking and made the kind of quiet vow young men make once and keep forever. The traitor hadn't even left. Why would he? Nobody warns you about me anymore, but they should. He was 9th layer with a fresh-fed demonic treasure, and we were an assortment. He rose off the temple roof with the wheel humming behind his shoulder like a black moon and told us, conversationally, that he'd been hoping for dessert. 342 rounds. I counted every one of them because counting was all I could do. The wheel was the problem, an edge that sheared through second-order artifacts like fruit rind, riding an orbit no one could predict. Jinhai's flame streams boxed it. It burned through the box. Wen Ruolan's silk caught it once and lost a third of the silk. The palace trio worked their lightning arts in rotation, drained one by one to sitting on the ground, gulping pills. It became a siege in open air, 9 of us feeding stamina into a fire, waiting for the monster's tank to hit empty before ours did. Round 300, Mei Ling's sword arm was shaking. Round 320, the traitor's barrier flickered for the first time, and everyone smelled it, the way you smell rain. Round 342, chasing wind and pursuing moon went through the flicker, and the man who erased Tianshui town folded around my daughter's blade and hit his own temple roof. Done. Silence. Ash drifting. 9 cultivators standing empty as poured out jars, starting to believe it was over. Which is exactly when 3 Hung-Yue cultivators walked out from behind the ruined temple where they'd been waiting the entire battle. Pang Zhen, 9th layer, their ace, and the brothers Wei, River, and Hung, grandsons of that Hung-Yue ancestor I'd killed, raised from the cradle on the story of the Liu family's crimes. I'd watched them slink into position an hour earlier and hoped, for their sake, they were just scouting. They weren't. Their plan was simple, and it was genuinely smart. Let the demon and the Liu children maul each other to exhaustion, then walk out fresh and harvest the survivors. No witnesses, plausible bandits, 2 Liu heirs dead in a ruin. Somewhere, an ancestral tablet would get incense over it. They looked at my swaying, sword-shaking, bone-dry daughter and drew. I bought chi and blood recovery, 25 points. Best 25 points ever spent, and I'd like the record to show my hands didn't even hesitate at my checkout. Mei Ling refilled to a full tank between one breath and the next. I watched it land in her, the tremble leaving her sword arm, her spine stacking straight, her breathing dropping from ragged to tidal. And I watched the 3 ambushers see it too, see the exhausted prey stand up out of its exhaustion like a drowned thing walking out of a lake, and understand at the speed of horror that the entire premise of their smart plan had just been repossessed. Han Jiang broke first, throwing his fire cloud talisman as a screen. She cut through the talisman and the man holding it in the same stroke. Pang Zhen, to his professional credit, got his blade fully raised before her turn took his head. And Han Yuan ran, dropped his sword, turned, and ran for the tree line as fast as terror could carry him, which was not as fast as my daughter on a full tank, with my family temper finally out of its sheath. You do not get to plan a vulture ambush on my children and then decline the consequences. She ran him down before the trees and made it quick, which is more courtesy than his plan had budgeted for us. She flew back to the square and landed, calm as snowfall, among 8 allies who had just watched an exhausted girl execute 3 fresh 9th layer killers in the time it takes to read a bounty notice. Qin Jie stood there, holding his own forgotten sword, and said, in a voice of pure awe, "The heroine is no less than any man. Young man, you have no idea, but stick around, you'll get one." 3 edicts delivered as promised, 4 in my vault now. The palace, delighted to have their trash removed, loudly torched Hung Yue's reputation across the prefecture for the ambush attempt, and Hung Yue had to send apology gifts to us. I'm told their elders' meeting that month was not a happy one. And me? I counted 4 lightning tokens, 2 heavenly rooted children, 1 supreme sword art, 1 lump of destiny metal, and a snake with 3 years left on its lease. Everything I did from here on was aimed at that cave. My wandering thread paid out first. Zhao Min, my justice-addicted disciple on his long walkabout, caught a famous flower thief in Jiyang City, a burglar the local magistrates had chased for years, earning the sect 40 reputation points and a public commendation, and teaching me something important about my economy. The system pays out on disciples' deeds anywhere in the world. My wandering boy wasn't a loose end, he was a branch office. So I audited the branch office in person via the teleport loophole. I can jump to any sect member anywhere. I found him working his way through the Changshan wilds on nothing but nerve and a bamboo sword. The first advisory session was a comedy classic. Boy, the crocodile. Its neck seam is soft. Strike there. Zhao Min froze mid-stalk, looked around the empty ravine, looked up, looked inside his own head, and asked the air quite reasonably, "Am I being haunted?" To which I replied, because the ancestor in Eternal Seclusion story needed stretching, I am still in seclusion. Interpret that as you wish. He chewed on that sentence for a good 10 breaths, and then, with the practicality that makes me love him, decided it didn't matter whether he was blessed or haunted as long as the advice was good, and killed 3 black-armored crocodiles by the neck seam before dinner. Faith is negotiable. My results are not. He and I have been an excellent team ever since. Mind the Ghost Eagle's patrol arc. Wolves to the south. That herb is worth 40 stones. Dig gently. Changshan itself, I found, was a vault with no door. 10 days of ghost scouting gave me 6 treasure sites and 2 that mattered. 1. A heavenly spirit fruit tree, ingredient number 1 of the Foundation Establishment pill, guarded by a Foundation Establishment demon ape we couldn't touch yet. Filed. 2. In the deep range where I did not linger, 3 golden core demon kings holding court around a nascent soul empress. A purple jade flood dragon in human shape, casually discussing a future expedition to somewhere called the Demon Abyss. I noted the name, I felt the temperature of it, and I left very quietly. Some doors I mark on my map and do not knock on. My family raid on Changshan's safe zones brought me home 623 stalks of spirit herbs and 3 dead beasts. With me as living radar, the wilderness was a supermarket, and my shop celebrated by showing me a spiritual vein upgrade, 300 points to raise the grade of my wounded mountain vein itself. The thing the demon chaos broke 30 years ago. Buyable. The catalog just casually offering to heal the mountain. I bought a luck blessing for Jiao Min instead that day. 300 was rich for my blood yet, but I circled the vein upgrade in red ghost ink. Then came the Locust War, and with it, my favorite genre of scene, the ex-employee at the reunion. A swarm of 1.6 million spirit locusts hit Pingyuan County, the prefecture's breadbasket. Not ordinary insects, but demon-touched ones, kings among them at the 9th layer, a weather system made of teeth. Hundreds of acres of grain gone in the first 2 days. The prefecture called a general muster, and for the first time since the fall, the Qingshan Sect answered one as a peer. Mei Ling led 10 of ours onto a battle line that included the Divine Firmament Palace, the Chaochen Sect, the Tang clan, and Heng Yue, dragging themselves in with gritted teeth to launder their post-ambush reputation, their elder Wei Yuan spending the whole campaign pointedly not making eye contact with the girl who'd killed 3 of his juniors. The battle itself was industrial, I'm telling you, and I attended every shift of it, drifting over my people like a superstition. Waves came in blocks of 100,000 and more, a brown horizon that hummed. The factions burned them out of the air in rotations, fire arts and wide-area talismans, then braced for the kings. The kings were real fights, I'll grant them that. 9th-layer monsters the size of oxen, wing cases like shield walls. And this is where the prefecture got its education about my family, because a king would come screaming down the line, 3 squads would scatter, and then a blue-white line called a thread of sky would open it lengthwise, and my daughter would already be turning toward the next one. I counted. She killed more kings that week than some factions fielded cultivators. By day 3, squad leaders were angling their lines to be near mine, and in the Tang clan's ranks stood one Chen Tianyu, formerly of the Qingshan Sect, formerly my second son's chief disciple, the man who returned the rental. I made a point of drifting over for his face myself, and his face did not disappoint. He watched his old junior classmates, the sinking ship people, the frozen stipend people, the ones he'd left with a polite bow. He watched them walk the line in matched formation, carving locust kings with matched second-order green bamboo swords, standard issue, every one of them. His new clan's honored head, meanwhile, fought with a blade 1 full grade worse than the sword in the hands of a Qingshan junior who'd been sweeping courtyards when Chen Tianyu handed in his robes. I watched him do the inventory, item by item, of everything he'd walked out of. I'm told he didn't say a word all week. My system does not sell a balm for that particular itch, and I wouldn't have bought him one anyway. The aftermath had one more gift for me. Jiao Min, luck freshly blessed, sniffed out a fire source stone ore vein in a Changshan canyon, a literal money seam, a decade of mining in it, exactly the income multiplier a war chest needs. Deep in the tunnels, the boys also met the vein's original owner, a stone mother, a 1,000-year mineral spirit at Foundation establishment, shaped like a woman of living rock, who nearly ate both my sons before they ran. We hid the vein under a mist formation and put her on the list under the snake. Everything in its order. The water ghosts of Yu Yang fell to my Jin Hai, who had quietly broken into the 9th layer, my 3rd, running a fire formation with 16 disciples like he'd been born to command, which he had. The 2nd sect shop opened, the harvest doubled again, and I went to sleep for 2 more years because the war chest needed one final deposit and my sleep was the cheapest interest in the world. I woke to a transformed balance sheet. Treasury over 9,000, net positive 5,700 a year. The sect's map status upgraded from dying to initially entering the righteous path, which is system speak for people stopped writing your obituary, and to a stack of banked reputation deep enough to swim in. The kids had run it all without me. 2 years, not one dropped plate. I'm going to keep saying it. A father notices. I spent like a drunk emperor, and I regret every point of nothing. Vein upgrade. Bought. The mountain itself began to heal, 1 year to rise a grade. The ice technique, Cloudwater Jade Waves. Bought. Delivered to little Xiao Yu, who hugged the jade slip. Breakthrough Bottleneck, plus 20% to a foundation attempt. Bought and banked. Spirit Void Vine Seeds and their pill recipe. Bought. Planted. Future pills for future foundation cultivators, because I intended to have several. Then I gathered the whole strike force, and we went to kill the snake. My 12 cultivators, 3 at the 9th layer. 9 disciples forming a mobile bamboo sea sword formation to cage the field, 4 divine firmament edicts and my talisman pouch as artillery, 2 years of compound interest, walking into a ruin to collect a tree. I staged my people out of the dead Sect's ruins at dawn, and I ran the briefing one last time down my family channel like the world's bossiest weather report. The 9 formation disciples deploy on the terraces, mobile, never static. The edicts fire on my call only. Nobody, I looked at Jinhai when I said it, invisibly, which admittedly blunts the effect. Nobody freelances. Then Fu Lin dropped a stone into the flooded cavern, and the water answered. The black water mystic snake rose out of that cave like a black river standing up. 30 jong of it over the waterline and more below, scales like wet shields, a head the size of my gatehouse, and roared loud enough to slap the ripples flat and a junior disciple onto his backside. An ancient demon god in miniature, and the miniature was bigger than my main hall. 5 years of planning, and the first honest thought in 12 heads, mine included, was, we should have planned for 6. The bamboo sea formation went up on my mark. 9 disciples flowing across the terraces, green sword light weaving a lattice over the water. And it worked exactly as advertised, biting into the monster's movement and shaving a third off its speed. A third off terrifying is still frightening, but frightening can be scheduled. Then the snake gathered itself for its first real lunge at the formation line, and I called the play we'd built the entire war chest around. Jinhai, Edict, now. 9 heavens divine thunder lit the cavern white, the weapon that had nearly killed my daughter, the weapon that erased demon barriers and burned ghost banners to memory, the full wrath of the divine firmament palace, delivered on target, dead center. And when the glare died, the snake had a few burnt scales, a crooked new scar across its hood, and a very, very bad temper. That thing's hide ate golden core lightning as a rude appetizer. Somewhere behind me, a disciple made a sound like a kettle. For one long heartbeat, my 12 people recalculated their life expectancy, and Jinhai stared at the smoking token stub in his hand like it had personally lied to him. And then my meddling went in, and I saw the whole road at once. The depressed girl who handed away her sword, the failed pill, 6 years of quiet math against her own worth. End at the point of a natal blade. My girl had forged it in secret, through a year of closed-door work she'd told no one the purpose of. The Tai Yi Heavenly Ruin sword, grown from her own glabella, hammered out of my desert nest purple, gold, copper, azure and ancient-looking from the first day it existed. It came off her brow like a piece of dawn. The snake struck at her, a lunge that displaced enough water to swamp the terraces. And chasing wind and pursuing moon simply wasn't where the strike was. It was at the 7th inch below the monster's jaw, the vital point every serpent hides, and it went in to the root. The roar changed pitch. A thread of sky opened it from throat to tail in one continuous line, the way you open a letter you've been waiting years for. The third cut was mercy. 3 strikes. 5 years of my dread, an apex monster older than my sect, dead in 3 strikes. And the strike team standing around unbloodied on the terraces like guests at someone else's wedding, formation still politely holding, 3 unused edicts still in pockets. Jinhai looked at the corpse, at his sister hovering calm above it, at the arsenal nobody needed, and asked the question for all 12 of them. Are we the decorations? Yes, my son, decorate. Your sister was busy becoming the strongest blade in the prefecture. I took my heavenly azure divine wood home under guard, and then my children had the argument I will replay forever, because it was an argument about who didn't get the treasure. The safe path to foundation establishment, 80% for a wood root, no cost on failure, and Mei Ling, who had the most right to it after her pill disaster, pushed it to her elder brother in front of everyone. My failure was the past. The sect needs its leader at foundation first. Jinhai seconded her before she finished. I ratified it with a father's voice from the ceiling, stacked the breakthrough bottleneck perk on top, and sent Fu Lin under the divine wood at 90% odds. 2 months later, I watched my sky over Green Lotus Mountain bend inward, spiritual energy pouring into his cave like a river remembering its bed, and my eldest son walked out of seclusion as the Qingshan Sect's first Foundation establishment cultivator in 13 years, laughing like a boy. My system chimed at me. Sect rank, Foundation establishment. The shop unlocked its 3-star shelf. My ghost speed doubled. Somewhere in the accounting of heaven, the Qingshan Sect changed columns, from prey to problem. My kind of promotion. And my 3-star shelf. Oh, my 3-star shelf. A cultivation cave dwelling that boosts training speed 5% forever. I bought it, and the system built it overnight with invisible hands, while the disciples watched stones stack themselves and concluded, correctly, that the ancestor was showing off. An escape art, purple extreme light, for Fulin. An ancestral blessing of year-long luck, for Fulin. And a second spiritual root enhancement, which I put into my daughter. Metal heavenly root. My swordswoman got the engine her blade deserved, and if you're keeping count, yes. 2 of my 3 children now ran on heaven-grade hardware, and the third was developing a visible complex about it, which I want noted was funny then and pays off later. With a Foundation establishment sect leader on my books, the 2 debts we'd shelved in the Changshan range came due, and we went collecting. First, my stone mother problem, the 1,000-year mineral spirit squatting in the deep galleries of my fire ore vein, the one that had nearly eaten both my sons on Discovery Day. She was a nightmare on paper. Foundation establishment strength, a body of living ore that blunted swords, home field advantage in tunnels she could swim through like water. So we didn't fight her in the tunnels. Fulin walked into her gallery ringing the dinner bell, let her build to a full charge, and met it head-on behind the water essence shield. A wall of condensed water essence that turned her avalanche punches into mist, while he stood in the middle of it like a man holding an umbrella in a landslide. And while every ounce of her attention was on the shield she couldn't crack, Mei Ling worked her flanks with the natal sword, patient as a quarry crew. An arm cracked off at the shoulder seam, then the other. The vermilion bird ring-bound what was left mid-stagger, and the twins of my house took the 1,000-year terror of the deep vein apart into 8 or 9 pieces of very high-grade masonry. And in her hollow, in a stone cradle she'd been guarding with her whole mineral life, we found the reason for all of it. 1,000-year spirit milk. A treasure that raises a Foundation establishment attempt by 10% a dose, and there was enough for 3 doses, plus, for my vault, several more. My children stood around that cradle doing silent math about their own futures, and the fire vein, cleared of its landlady, went to full production and started printing 600 stones a month on top. The sect competition that spring crowned Wang Zixuan first among disciples, as expected. The crowd's jaw, however, dropped for the exhibition match, where 9-year-old Su Xiaoyu, barrel survivor, wolf pelt robe, ice root humming, fought a girl 6 years her senior to a standstill and then passed it, frost feathering off her little sword with every pass. Asked for the secret afterward, she gave the assembled seniors a small bow and said, "I just do what my teacher says." Her teacher, aloof as ever at the arena rail, wore the expression of a snow leopard pretending not to purr. Then my second debt, the demon ape. The purple-eyed demonic ape held the best real estate in the Changshan range. The grove of the heavenly spirit fruit tree, ingredient 1 of the Foundation establishment pill. And it was no stone mother. It was fast, Foundation establishment nudging its second layer, armed with a second-order spear it had taken off somebody's corpse. And its party trick was worse than both. Beams from its purple eyes that struck not the body, but the soul. A chi refining cultivator who caught one died standing up, so the ground rules were simple. Children of chi refining rank were sent 3 ridges back over loud objections, and Fulin went in for my first true like-for-like fight, Foundation versus Foundation, Vow's realm advantage, no home crowd. The opening was ugly, and I promise you I narrated none of it calmly. I-beams don't announce themselves. The first one grazed his shoulder, and he described it later as being briefly hated by the sun. He spent the early fight learning the blink pattern with the purple extreme light escape art, flickering around the grove while the ape's spear split boulders where he'd been standing. Then the pattern clicked, and he did the thing we'd drilled, closed to inside spear range where the beams couldn't track and the spear couldn't sweep, and snapped the vermilion berg ring over the ape's arms at skin distance. 1 heartbeat of bound, thrashing monster. From the ceiling of the world, its dead grandfather-in-law hit my son with a critical strike buff, because a mugging should be a family affair. A thread of sky went in through the heart and out the far side of the grove. My An Shu Ying spent 6 days excavating the tree with the tenderness of a surgeon. You do not rush a treasure with roots. And the heavenly spirit fruit tree came home to my garden with 36 unripe fruits on its branches, each one a future cultivator's whole fate, ripening on my schedule now. Xiao Hai took to doing his homework under it. Nobody had the heart to move him. Ingredient 2 arrived through the strangest door yet, and I need to slow down for this one because it's the funniest week of my afterlife. Zhao Min's luck blessing had been quietly steering him around the Qingli seacoast for months. A pirate nest here, a bounty there, and along the way he'd fallen in with 3 young disciples of the Celestial Saint Palace, a golden core sect of the north, 2 solid boys and a girl named Lin Qingzhi, who laughed at his jokes with a frequency I noted down as a father-in-law of leisure. The 4 of them found a sealed door in a cliffside that no one could open, pooled 2,000 stones for a barrier-breaking pearl, and cracked it. Behind the door was not a cave, it was a world, a private pocket space with its own sky and its own polite little sun, and under that sun a full palace complex laid out with the obsessive symmetry of a man who alphabetized his enemies. The owner sat on his own throne in his best robes and a crown, a core formation hermit, 200 years mummified, dead of old age at the exact center of his perfectly centered hall. Even his dust had settled symmetrically. I teleported in on Zhao Min's coordinates and went to work, and here is where I invite you to picture the scene from my side. The greatest sword ancestor in Chu Country's history, terror of demons, slayer of golden cores. Floating face first through the lids of a dead man's treasure boxes because ghost eyes need line of sight, calling out contents like a market auctioneer to the one boy who could hear me. This box, pill bottles, take it. This one's empty, skip. The lacquered one, no, the other lacquered one. They're all lacquered, curse this man's taste. That one, 6 flowers in stasis jade, take that one. Because that box held 6 purple monkey flowers. Ingredient 2 of the Foundation Establishment pill, extinct in 3 prefectures, sitting in a dead perfectionist's pantry. The palace made us earn it. The inner hall was guarded by 2 bronze statue soldiers, late Foundation constructs in their prime, decayed after 2 centuries to merely 9th layer, which was still a full weight class above 4 chi refining kids. The 4 of them threw everything. The statues walked through it and cracked a borrowed shield like an egg. So the invisible chaperone opened his talisman pouch. A fire sword talisman took the first statue through the chest. An evil warding thunderbolt put the second on its bronze knees for the kids to finish. And the 3 celestial saint disciples stood in the settling dust, looked at the scorch marks of divine weapons from absolutely nowhere, looked at mild, polite Zhao Min, and arrived in unison at the only sane conclusion. Their new friend was a hidden monster of unfathomable depth, who had been carrying them the entire time out of courtesy. The reverence was instant and total. They insisted he take first pick of everything. They deferred to his opinions on lunch. Lin Qingzhi's laugh frequency went up again. Zhao Min tried twice to explain it wasn't him, got as far as, "It's not what you," and I cut in on my private channel. "Stop. Some reputations are too useful to correct." He closed his mouth and became a legend. My hall called out box by yours truly, including the secret compartment behind the vase. "Turn it 3 inches left, boy." The man was symmetrical, but not creative. 6 purple monkey flowers. A 4-tier cultivation manual, the Purple Mansion Heavenly Strategy, usable only by a pure wood root. Hello, Fulin. 3 alchemy furnaces of a grade my alchemist had only read about. 90,000 spirit stones, the liquid savings of a crystallization stage lifetime, which by expedition custom went overwhelmingly to Zhao Min and instantly made the wandering orphan of the Qingshan sect richer than most clan heirs. And 1 golden page, the forging recipe for a heavenly balance, a 5 elements artifact that any cultivator of any root can wield. My sect issued bamboo swords that only suited some roots. This page meant that someday, standard issue would fit everyone. When Zhao Min got nervous about hauling a dead man's fortune through pirate waters, I woke Fu Lin out of cultivation and had the sect leader personally fly to the coast as an escort. At which sight, the 3 celestial saint disciples experienced their final paradigm collapse, because their own sect wouldn't send an elder to walk a junior home, and Zhao Min's sect sent its leader. I'm building a reputation by accident out here, dead and still networking. The Hermit's Windfall also funded a hardware upgrade I'd been saving toward, and the recipient gave me the worst customer experience of my afterlife. Spiritual Root Enhancement. Third purchase. Target. Wang Zixuan. My sect's best disciple deserved better than his middling earth-water roots. Standard procedure by now. A courteous voice transmission. This venerable one is the sect's founding ancestor. Prepare yourself. Followed by the miracle. Except this particular boy, serious, logical, raised on my daughter's precept of verify everything, responded to the founding ancestor of his sect with, prove it, to me. I materialized half a lecture about respect before realizing I was arguing with a 19-year-old about my own identity, from beyond the grave, and losing. So I skipped the debate and fired the enhancement, and his earth-water dual roots collapsed and recrystallized into a pure earth attribute heavenly spiritual root. Top of the chart, the same tier as my own children's, and the boy sat down hard in his courtyard, felt the new engine turning over in his dantian, and said, with feeling, holy crap, it's real, you're really the ancestor. Language, I said, and yes, and you're welcome, and the next time a divine voice addresses you, lead with the kowtow and audit afterward. Though privately, between us, the audit instinct is exactly why I'm investing in you, boy. A sect of believers needs at least one auditor. Romance broke out in the middle of my empire building, because life doesn't wait for arc structure. Han Bo, Goldwater disciple, brave in battle, catastrophic around women, took to loitering near Lu Shuilian's lake, shoved a healing pill into her hands, and fled the scene at a dead sprint. She turned the pill over, said Chu Woodenhead to the empty air, and went pink. I floated there eavesdropping without a gram of shame. My own children, please note, eldest married to the sect ledger, second married to his sword, youngest legally wed to a forge. A father takes his gossip where the harvest offers it. The bee hunt gave us a hive of white jade bees and their paralytic stinged king, tamed by Shulian's spirit powder and bagged at midnight. Honey worth 1,000 stones a jar, plus the recipe for jade bee pills that boost Foundation cultivators. The Merit Hall reopened, missions on a board, disciples earning artifact credit, a system inside my system. I felt seen. A random talent roll hit Jinhai and came up array formation talent, and my wall-punching second son discovered, to everyone's shock including his own, that he loved formations. Laying his first beast cage array in the field and grinning like a kid who'd found his room had a secret door. Each child a lane now, the leader, the blade, the architect. The new array architect got his showcase mission almost immediately, and it became instant sect legend for entirely the wrong reasons. 12 peach blossom tree demons had taken over a forest near Taoyuan. Ambush predators, indistinguishable from ordinary flowering trees until you're inside their reach, scattered through square li of woodland. The sensible plan was a slow sweep with detection arts. Jinhai looked at the forest, looked at his fire-rooted hands, and proposed the Jinhai plan. Why search for trees when trees can't run from fire? He burned the forest down. The whole forest. Methodically, with containment lines, the formation talent is real, the fire breaks were textbook. But still, my son's solution to hidden enemies was to delete the concept of hiding, and then stand at the tree line with the 9 fire flame dragon pearls cycling, executing tree demons as they came screaming out of their own burning camouflage. 12 of 12. Mission complete. A district of Taoyuan smelled like peach smoke for a month, and I hovered over the ash field torn between paternal disapproval and taking notes. Efficiency is efficiency. The mission's real dividend, though, was mine alone. Poking around Taoyuan afterward, I felt water moving where no water should be, an underground spirit stream, cold and rich, sliding beneath the bedrock. And since I'm the one entity alive or dead who can follow a river through solid rock, I followed it. For 2 months, upstream through the roots of the world, to its source, a snowy plateau far beyond my borders, where a spring of 4th-tier mid-grade spiritual water rose out of the ice. Purer than my sect's vein at its historical peak, guarded, distant, utterly beyond my current reach. I marked it on my map next to the Demon Empress and the Demon Abyss, in the drawer labeled Someday, and floated the 2 months home, making plans measured in decades. Being dead has ruined my sense of urgency in the best possible way, and 2 finds set up everything I did after. On a riverbank mission, my scouts flagged the sea-overturning flood dragon of the Qiantang, a Foundation 2 floodbringer with a century of stored power, whose bounty listing made my dead heart forget it was dead. Reward 1,250 points, plus an item called 3-Star Resurrection. Read the description with me. Restores the host to his peak golden core body. Duration 1 day. 1 day alive. 1 day of my own hands, my own sword, my own peak. I stared at that listing the way thirsty men stare at rain clouds. Not yet. Fu Lin needed to be Foundation 3 to anchor the hunt, but soon. The second find wore a mask, and it found us on an ordinary market day, which is how the bad ones always arrive. Lu Shuilian rode to Qinghe alone with 6 jars of white jade honey, 1,000 stones a jar, the Sect's new luxury line, and sold half of them to a buyer from the Jiangling Tong family, while a street's worth of wandering cultivators window shopped and sighed at the price. One of the window shoppers didn't sigh. Feng Yue Shi, of the Hengyue Sect, 5th layer, young, with a soul wound that was slowly killing her. The exact ailment my honey treats, and not 1/10 the stones to buy it. I want to be fair to the dead. She was desperate, and desperation was the soil. But what grew in it was a plan, and the plan was to follow the seller into the hills and take the honey off her body. She tailed Shulian to the slopes of Shuangjiao Mountain, waited for empty road, and drew a dark demon banner. An evil artifact, ghost-fueled, 3 weight classes of nasty above her own cultivation. And for the first time in my entire afterlife, the system itself screamed at me, a red alert, unprompted, disciple in mortal danger. I have never spent 5 points faster. The teleport put me on that mountainside mid-alarm into the middle of it. Shulian backed against the rock face, her green bamboo sword in one hand and her compass artifact in the other, holding. Actually holding, my beast tamer had been quietly training all along against a shrieking banner that was hurting her like a sheepdog made of dead men. Holding, but losing. Banners don't tire. So the dust grew weapons. 2 water sword talismans, cast from empty air, took Feng Yushi through the guard she had no reason to raise against an empty road. And Shulian, bless her steel nerves, didn't waste 1 heartbeat wondering where heaven's help came from. She crossed the gap and finished it with her own blade. Then she saw a Foundation establishment aura dropping fast out of the sky toward her, went white, grabbed the fallen banner to flee, and recognized her own sect leader, arriving at panic speed a half hour behind his father. The look on her face cycled through mortal terror, recognition, and profound embarrassment at nearly having thrown a demon artifact at her boss. We burned the banner on the spot. The would-be killer's pouch held 500 stones, a Heng Yue identity plaque. Of course, always, Heng Yue, and one more thing, folded small against her skin like a secret. Half a map. An island drawn in careful ink, torn edge, the other half somewhere in the world. File that half map with me. It's not done with my family. And a detail from that bee heist I didn't tell you at the time. Han Bo talked his way onto the expedition, specifically because Shulian was going. Took 12 stings covering her flank in the dark, and walked home, considering it a bargain. Everything in my sect has a double use, even my gossip, even the romance. The Jade Bee pills pushed Fu Lin to Foundation 4, which was the trigger condition, so the dragon hunt went ahead on schedule, and gave me the fight I'd spent a season designing armor around. The sea-overturning flood dragon of the Qiantang River had 100 years of stored power and a resume of drowned villages. Its kit, per my scouting, tidal walls that could put a county underwater, a body of black mist that ate swordlight, 30-plus water demon servants, and the item that dictated my whole build, acid spit from its inner elixir that dissolved second-order artifacts on contact. You cannot outgear acid that eats gear. So I bought the counter in advance, the mixed origin golden bell, 3rd rank mid-grade, a defensive dome with exactly 1 job, and gave my 2 eldest exactly 1 order. Get under the bell. Stay under the bell. Let it hate the bell. The river stood up when they arrived. That's the honest description. 100 jang of black water rising into a shape with eyes, servants boiling around its base, and the first tidal wall already curling over the bank like a closing hand. My children walked calmly into the shadow of all that, rang the bell down around themselves, and did nothing. And the monster, exactly as designed, went insane on the shell. Tides hammered it, acid sheeted off it, hissing, etching the riverbank to bedrock while the golden dome didn't so much as discolor. Demon servants swarmed and were cut apart in rotations through the bell's rim by 2 natal swords working like clock hands. An hour of this, and I loved every minute. The dragon spent a century of hoarded power on a bell, roar by roar, while inside it, 2 Foundation cultivators sipped tea-warm mana and watched the meter drop. My proudest tactical hour, and I fought none of it myself. The dragon figured me out the way bullies do, too late and all at once. And then it did the smart thing at last, turned and ran downriver, because a flooded continent is a big place to hide. Except the bell opened, and the boy it had been fighting unfolded wind thunder wings. The chase, by my count, lasted 4 li. Chasing wind and pursuing moon caught its spine at full flight. It turned in the water to bite, which is when Mei Ling's A Thread of Sky went in through the open mouth and out the far side of its skull. The scourge of the Qiantang drifted to the bank in pieces, and somewhere downstream, a county held a festival it couldn't explain. The corpse became my infrastructure. Mei Ling, a full 3rd-rank refiner now, spent a season on it and hammered the sea-overturning flood dragon into a flying warship. The Flood Dragon boat, 3rd rank, seats 100, my sect's first capital asset with a prow. Plus needles, a whip, a war robe from the leftovers, because my daughter wastes nothing she has personally killed. And in the dragon's stolen lair, the cave of some long-digested hermit, we found azure water nether spring, a rare essence that substitutes for the Foundation pill's 3rd ingredient. Count with me now. Fruit, flower, spring. 3 of 4. The recipe that ruled every chi refining cultivator's fate in Chu Country was 1 ingredient, golden lotus, from being ours to brew. And the bounty paid out. 3-star resurrection. In my inventory, my finger over the button. I didn't press it. Ask me someday what that cost me. Understand. 1 day at peak golden core is 1 miracle. Spend it on a sunny afternoon and it's gone when the knife comes. And the knife was coming. The token protection had years left, not decades. Hung Yue's hate was compounding as fast as my interest. And somewhere out there, things with names like Way Old Demon and Demon Abyss knew my address. So I put my 1 day of life in my vault, told nobody it existed, and went back to being dead. It's the hardest purchase I never made. Chekhov can hold my drink. Mei Ling broke into Foundation establishment that same season, and I want to sit with this one for a moment. Because of everything I've bought and built and buried since I died, this is the entry in the ledger I'd keep if I could keep only one. 6 years ago, this girl swallowed a pill worth the sect's entire savings, felt it fail inside her, and spent every day after carrying the invoice. This time there was no roulette. Jade bee pills for the approach, a heavenly root under her, a natal sword in her brow, and a foundation built of 6 years of pure, spiteful, patient work. When the spiritual energy started funneling into her cave, half the mountain came out to watch the sky bend. When she walked out, Foundation establishment, second of my children, steady as a struck bell. My assembled disciples cheered themselves hoarse, and she thanked them with a nod of exactly 4 degrees, because some renovations don't touch the aloof. And that evening, she flew a lap of the valley on her own natal sword, hair loose, faster than she needed to, and nobody on the ground could tell whether it was a patrol or a lap of honor, and her father, flying beside her where nobody could see, is prepared to testify. It was a lap of honor. She celebrated the only way she knows, went straight back to work. A Foundation 1 tiger demon had been eating its way through the outskirts of Xinghua village, the kind of monster that would have required my whole first squad and a prayer 5 years ago. She went alone. The bone whip lashed it out of its pounce, the Xuanyu needles pinned it mid-turn, the demon locking ring closed the exits, and the Tai Yi sword concluded the seminar. Whip, needles, ring, blade, done. A one-woman formation with no wasted motion. The village got its road back, the region got a new fact of mind to reckon with, and the arc closed clean, from the depressed girl who handed away her own sword to the prefecture's premier monster removal service. And if you think her ghost father didn't do one slow, unhurried lap of pride around the entire mountain that night, you have not been listening. One more random talent roll, talisman talent, landing on Han Bo, delivered by heavenly voice while he stood at the lake failing to talk to Shulian, who by now was fully briefed on the meddling ancestor and just patted his arm. Be calm, Big Brother Chu, this senior does this. And my sect's trade school was complete. Alchemist, beast tamer, array architect, talisman scribe, master smith. 30 years ago, I'd built this sect on my sword alone, and it had almost died of me being one man. This time it had organs. This time it could survive its founder. Which was lucky for me, because the invitations were about to start arriving from the wider world, and the wider world plays for keeps. The first invitation came stamped with 100 years of my history. The Heavenly Fire Palace, the sea-spanning power that guards the lost vortex, the sealed wound in the world where demons leak through each century. Sent out the call, the seal was weakening on schedule, all righteous forces to muster. Payment for meritorious service included the one thing money couldn't buy me: Heavenly Fire purple gold copper, stock enough to forge a second natal sword. Fu Lin had just mastered the second layer of the Tai art. The math wrote itself. He went alone over his siblings' loud objections and my private misgivings, which I personally squashed with the tenderness I'm famous for. You two are chi refining. You'd be luggage. Sit home and guard the mountain. They smiled the crooked smiles of people saving it up for later, and I pretended not to see Jin Hai adding another line to his private list of reasons to reach foundation. The muster was a spectacle worth my crossing by itself. 9,800 cultivators on the Heavenly Fire Palace's terraces, sorted into ranked war bands with the brisk indifference of a machine that has done this every century for 1,000 years. Golden cores to the vortex, crystallization to the forbidden zone, everyone else to the sea of turmoil. Next, next, next. My son was queuing with the other Foundation nobodies when a voice like a landslide crossed the entire terrace. You, boy, turn around. Respected Qin Bao, late Golden Core, a warband commander, built like a wine barrel that took up swordsmanship, and my drinking partner across 4 decades of my first life. He took one look at Fu Lin's face and bellowed a name the terraces hadn't heard in 30 years. Ancient Devil Lee's boy. That jaw. That's his jaw. And then my poor son experienced the full Qin Bao, shoulders gripped, lineage confirmed, cultivation appraised aloud at volume, and a barrage of questions about when that shameless old demon of a father was finally leaving seclusion because there was a jar of monkey wine with my name on it that had been aging out of spite. Ancient Devil Lee, for the record, was my war name in circles where affection sounds like insult, and hearing it again did something to my dead heart I won't fully itemize. Fu Lin handled it with diplomat's footwork. Father remains in seclusion. His spirit is, very much with us, which is funnier than he knew. And Qin Bao, on no basis but an old jaw and older wine, tore up my son's assignment slip and moved him to a stronger battalion under his own eye, growling that a brother's son doesn't march with strangers. The past has doors everywhere, and some of them open with wine. Drink widely, children. Take it from me, it's infrastructure. The war itself was the largest thing my son, or, honestly, I, had ever seen, and I walked it beside him invisibly, calling threats like a co-pilot who happens to be dead. The scale first, because scale was the lesson, for me as much as him. 3 fronts, sorted by cultivation caste like a menu. The lost vortex itself, the actual sealed wound, where the Golden Core teams fought things I remembered from nightmares of my first life. The Heavenly Fire Forbidden Zone for the crystallization ranks, and the Sea of Turmoil for everyone else, an ocean of corrosive black fog where the demons came in tides. Orange shock troops in the inner sea, smaller vermin in the outer, 16 catalogued races in all, and my son learned the catalog the practical way, by killing samples of most of it. The first day, a Golden Core wandering cultivator died 3 ridgelines over. A man of a rank that ruled provinces, gone in a pressure pop of light, and the line didn't even pause. 9,000 cultivators kept swinging. That sound, battle continuing over a Golden Core's death, is the sound of a real war, and my son's face changed that day into the face he wears now. I'd love to tell you he survived on his training. Mostly, to my professional delight, he did. Twice, he survived on his father. The first time was a crowded ridge, mid-tide, everyone's flanks tangled with everyone else's. A late 3rd-tier horned demon came out of the fog behind him with a trident and every advantage, and put it into my son's back. Put it, past tense, completed action, the strike landed. On a fatal block I'd bought while the demon was still mid-lunge. The trident rebounded off empty air with a sound like a struck bell. My son turned around and killed the owner, and Elder Wei Xuan of the Luoyun Sect. Late crystallization, 40 years of battlefield mileage. stood 10 paces away, staring at a Foundation 4 boy who had just no-sold a killing blow from clean out of his blind spot. I watched the elder try 3 consecutive explanations and visibly file the whole event under sects I should not offend. The second time became legend. The underworld demons came out at dusk, assassin cast, teleporting killers who surface out of shadow, take a cultivator, and fold away. And the line started losing people in 1s and 2s to enemies nobody could target, except the fog and the shadow and the folding meant nothing to the one entity on that battlefield with no eyes to fool. I could see them moving between spaces the way you see fish under ice, so I started calling emergence points down my family channel to the inch. Sword 7 inches right, he surfaces there. Now behind, waist height, count of 2. And my son's blade was waiting it there, again and again, before each demon finished arriving. To every witness on that ridge, Li Fulin of the Qingshan sect spent an hour precognitively executing invisible teleporting assassins. Wei Xuan stopped trying to explain anything. By the campaign's end, he had privately concluded the Qingshan sect was a hidden monster school running some ancient divination art, and was treating my son with the wary courtesy you'd give a sleeping dragon's egg. I did nothing to correct this. Reputations, useful, etc. My favorite renewable resource. And when the final tide came, the big one, the seal groaning, the C-bands rotated into the Forbidden Zone to man the blazing sun burning heaven array, a 3-tier formation of anti-demon fire that I memorized wholesale over the operator's shoulders because tuition was free. I opened the wallet all the way. Temporary realm boost. My Foundation 4 son fought that night at Foundation 5. Agility boost, demon-grade foot speed. Combat endurance, double stamina. Full chi and blood restore whenever the meter dipped. He went down the line like weather. At one point I lost track of him. Me, his dedicated ghost, outpaced, and hung there grumbling that if he weren't my own child, I wouldn't bother keeping up, while Wei Xuan, watching my son sprint through his 4th consecutive hour of full output combat, was heard demanding of heaven, "What pill does that?" A 5-tier one, elder. It's called a father with savings. My son's final tally, 257 demon kills, banked as a sack of demon beads. At the merit exchange, Qinbao personally counted them out. 196 first order, 61 second order, 2 third order, roaring louder with each stack, announcing to the entire pavilion that ancient Devil Lee's boy had cracked the top 10 of every Foundation cultivator on the field. 9,000 attendees. Top 10. 2 rows back in that line stood a gray-faced Chen Tianyu. Yes, he was there. Yes, he'd nearly died twice. No, he did not have one single second-order bead to his name. Watching my son cash in for a Foundation establishment pill and 5 ingots of heavenly fire purple gold copper while the pavilion applauded. Somewhere in that line, he did the final math on where standard-issue Qingshan disciples rank against the clan he left us for. The system really should sell him that balm. It should not, however, sell it cheap. Also at my son's elbow, Qin Bao leaned in with the subtlety of a landslide. I have a daughter, you know. No Dao companion. I'll bring her to visit. My son turned the color of my fire vein. From the ceiling, his dead father laughed and took notes. Home, then, with my 2 treasures. The pill went, by my ruling, and I stand by it, and watch the shape of this family. It went not to Jinhai, who'd earned the next slot, but with his blessing to nobody yet, Jinhai himself waved it toward Mei Ling's reserve, announcing cheerfully that he was a coward who refused to gamble at anything under excellent odds, and I promised him the next one on stacked bonuses. Honest about his fear, and generous inside it. People underestimate my second son because he's loud. They shouldn't. My eldest forged his own natal Tai Yi sword from the war copper, Foundation-grade mana in the folding, which made his blade the stronger twin of his sister's. And the sect's slow flywheel kept spinning underneath the drama. The mountain vein finished its year and rose a grade. The spirit void vines matured into 36 pills. Plum wine, peaches, honey, mining, rice, fish, the boring lines of my ledger. Compounding, which is what boring lines do if I defend them. Then came the errands that turn out, in my experience, to be destiny. We needed pack animals. Renting Taiyun beasts for every caravan was rent, and I hate rent. So Jinhai took the warship to the Luochuan plain where the wild herds run, and got to debut his new trade. His first real formation laid with his own flags across a grazing bowl. The herd walked in, the array snapped shut, and a pressure dome settled over 32 Taiyuan beasts like a polite giant's palm. Foals folding down first, then the cows, the whole herd pressed gently to the grass. My wall-punching son stood at the flag line making fine adjustments with the tip of his tongue between his teeth, and I watched his talent finish becoming a profession. Except the king. The herd king, peak of the 8th layer, a slab of muscle with opinions, stayed up under the dome through 4 consecutive taming talismans, shrugging each one off with escalating contempt. Shuilian's manuals were consulted. More talismans were proposed. And then Jinhai, tired, hungry, and out of process, delivered the most Jinhai negotiation in recorded history. He looked the king in the eye and mused, thoughtfully, audibly, to no one in particular. You know, I've always wondered what Beast King meat tastes like braised. Would it be gamey? At its size, we'd need the big pot. The king went still as a statue. Then it lay down. Then it nudged its own foals toward the boat ramp. Turns out they understand speech, and fluently. The herd walked itself onto the warship in good order, the king boarding last with the dignity of a general accepting honorable terms, and the sect got its transport fleet for the price of 1 culinary threat. Shuilian scolded him the whole flight home. The king, I noticed, kept one eye on him anyway. Respect comes in many currencies. And the honey run to market, routine, boring, ledger line, was the one that pulled the trigger on everything, because it ended with Feng Yuxi dead on a mountainside and half a map in my daughter-in-arms Shulian's hand, and because Heng Ye's next generation now had a name to hate us by, and because the map's other half was about to walk into my son's life wearing a con man's smile, 1,000 li away, on an island market, next to the last golden lotus in this story. But I'm getting ahead of the pieces on the board. First, the sect needed to gear up for polite society, because we'd been invited to a party. My party was the Tianan Barter Convention at 9 Cold Mountain, the fortress market of Elder Xie, golden core sovereign of the western border, and, once upon a lifetime, my friend. The prize on my radar? 15 Foundation establishment pills, trade only, treasures accepted, spirit stones refused. And my second son, Jinhai, was standing at the peak of chi refining with no pill and a complex about his siblings' hardware. My whole family went. I rode along invisibly, which is the best way to attend any reunion. Before we left, I ran the pre-trip shopping spree. My alchemist An Shu Ying upgraded to 3rd rank. 1 shelf below brewing Foundation pills herself, remember the plan. The fire vein optimized to double output, growth acceleration for the plum tree, Lingzhi seeds for the late-stage disciples, and 2 combat talismans onto my belt, plus 1 item I want you to remember. A physical block talisman rated to stop a blow from a golden core cultivator. Into my vault it went, next to my unspent resurrection. I was becoming a doomsday prepper with excellent taste. 9 Cold Mountain announced Jiang's tax bracket from the horizon. A 4th rank spirit vein, 9 3rd rank veins orbiting it, a market 6 times the size of Qinghe, all of it under a formation that could shrug off 3 golden core attackers. Her steward at the Hanshan Pavilion, a Foundation establishment cultivator working retail, that's the flex, recognized my children's faces in one glance. Descendants of old ancestor Lu. And then, gently, the sentence that told me exactly how the world saw us now. So Qingshan has truly declined, that his heirs must come trade for a single Foundation pill. He wasn't cruel about it. That made it worse. 30 years ago, his mountain sent us tribute. The convention hall held 109 cultivators, and I ghosted through it counting, and half my history. Qin Jie was there, the palace boy, towing his master Zhao Qingfeng, a crystallization elder who, 40 years ago, had knocked on my gate begging to be my disciple. I'd turned him down for lack of time. He introduced my children to his whole circle of core formation friends anyway, which is how a good man ages. And Heng Yue was there, Elder Wei Yuan, careful and gray, flanked by a sneering junior, and by Feng Lin, peak of chi refining, brother of Feng Yueshi, the girl who died trying to rob my beast tamer. He didn't know how his sister died. He looked at my children the way you look at a locked door you intend to come back for. The trading ran like opera, and I had the best seat I didn't pay for. A divine firmament prodigy dropped 2 4th-rank talismans on the table for a blazing fire crystal, and the room made peasant noises. Then my son lifted a small jade bottle, 1 dose of the Stone Mother's 1,000-year spirit milk. and the auctioneer, Fang Ruoxi, Jiang's favorite disciple, smelled it once and closed the deal on the spot. 1 bottle, 1 Foundation establishment pill. We had 5 more bottles at home. I kept my ghost face very still, and my ghost heart did arithmetic with a lot of zeros in it. The reaction to my trade was its own show, and I collected every face. Zhao Qingfeng, who knew exactly what spirit milk was, revised his estimate of the declined sect upward in real time. The sneering Heng Yue Jr., who had spent the morning telling his elder that the Qingshan paupers couldn't scrape 10,000 stones together, went from smirk to open mouth to a truly medicinal silence. And Wei Yuan, who had watched my son grow suspiciously stronger at every encounter for years, and had just watched him pay for a foundation pill with a golden core grade garnish, arrived visibly at the conclusion he'd been resisting all decade. Do not touch that family. Correct, elder. Circulate the memo. Then Heng Yue's turn, and I'll confess I enjoyed this beyond what's dignified. Wei Yuan stepped up for their own pill, for young Feng Lin's breakthrough. The sect was desperate to mint a new foundation cultivator before the ledger flipped, and offered 2 third-rank nourishing pills. Fang Ruoxi glanced at them and declined, politely, the way banks declined. And so, gray-faced, in front of 109 witnesses from every power in 2 countries, the elder of the Heng Yue sect reached into his robes and laid down the golden blazing heavenly fire saber. The hall inhaled as one, and so did I, out of habit. Their founding ancestors' signature art. The technique ancient elder Hua rode to dominance over all Chu Country, the pillar inheritance of the Heng Yue sect, the kind of manual sects passed to one true disciple a generation, and guard with killing formations, pawned across a market table for 1 foundation pill, because 30 years after their golden core died, his sect had nothing else left that the market wanted. Fang Ruoxi asked, with real surprise, "Are you certain you'll trade this?" Giving him 1 public chance to walk it back. He said 1 word, trade, and every cultivator in that hall performed the same silent subtraction about what remained in Heng Yue's vaults, and reached the same difference, nothing. 30 years of their hatred for us, and this was the balance sheet at last. We traded milk, they traded their soul. And the man whose sword started their decline floated in the rafters, watching, feeling, I'll be honest with you, not triumph exactly, something quieter, with a colder edge. You want your enemies beaten. You don't entirely want to watch them sell their ancestor at auction. But I got over it by dinner. 2 more lots mattered to my ledger. The Jade Marrow Golden Branch, 4th and final foundation pill ingredient we lacked, offered at a friendly price by the house, went into my bag. All 4 ingredients. The recipe was ours to brew the moment my alchemist ranked up. And then Fang Ruoxi raised a technique called the Greenwood Longevity Scripture. 70 added years of lifespan, restored youth, and she named its price, a golden core grade metal sword art. The room turned as one and looked at my children, because everyone in Chu Country knows exactly 1 family famous for golden core metal sword arts. Mine. My old friend Jiang, fishing for my inheritance across a market table, 30 years after my last breath. I whispered 1 word down my family channel. No. Maybe she missed me. Maybe she was measuring the corpse. 30 years changes people, and I don't sell my sword to a maybe. The lot went unsold, and I filed the question of Jiang under later, with tongs. The last trade found me. A wandering cultivator called Guo Tao pressed a 3rd-rank fire sword plus a cultivation powder on us in exchange for spirit milk, generous, eager, insistent. I okayed it. The sword was real. So, we would shortly learn, was the tracking stone sewn into its hilt, because in an inn that night, 3 men planned my children's murder. Guo Tao, a Firecloud Valley sect rat named Wei Feng, and a 3rd, Zhao Hong, who sat with his doubts, did the one piece of math that mattered. Descendants of a golden core ancestor may have inheritances you cannot see, and he walked out of the plot with a warning to work clean. Remember him. Cowardice and wisdom sometimes wear the same coat, and it's the only reason that man is alive. And in a cave at the peak of Nine Cold Mountain that same night, a conversation happened that I didn't witness and only piece together later. But it belongs here because it answered the question I'd filed under tongs. Fang Ruoxi flew home to report the convention to her master and elder Xie, who the whole world addresses in the neutral awe reserved for faceless legends. Turned out to be a woman who looks 25, refining pills over a violet flame, listening to her disciple's ledger with half an ear, until one name came up, the Liu family siblings. And then my old friend set down her pill work and asked questions with actual weather in them. Their cultivation, their bearing. Which of them took the foundation pill? And when Ruoxi reported that the sword technique lot had gone unsold because young Lu declined, Jiang wasn't offended. She was, her disciple thought, almost pleased. And then she told the girl a story I'd have paid 10,000 points to hear told. 30 years ago, the Mystic Realm expedition into Qi State, the one I never came home right from. Ancient Elder Hua of the Hengyue sect picked his treasure fight with me in the deep ruins, and I killed him for it, which the world knows. What the world doesn't know, Jiang was there and stayed her hand in that first fight. She admits it plainly, she was weighing odds like everyone else. But when two golden core ancestors of the Yusu sect ambushed me afterward in the deep halls, 2-on-1, meaning to have my sword and my storage rings both, Jiang stepped in. We drove them off together. It cost me the wound that never healed, the one that quietly ate my lifespan for 30 years and finally collected in that cave on a Tuesday. She offered me 9 cold mountain to recuperate. I refused, dragged myself home, and sealed my own door. So that's the debt between us, told to a disciple over a pill furnace. She owes me a rescue she was almost too late for, and I owe her the fact that my children got to grow up with a father in a cave instead of a grave in Qi State. And then Jiang gave her orders. Watch the Qingshan sect kindly. If the second boy's breakthrough fails, we will trade them another pill. Old Lu repays kindness. If he ever leaves seclusion, 9 cold mountain should be standing next to his sect, not across from it. And she gave the girl the Greenwood longevity scripture as a casual gift, the way you hand off a book you've finished. So, not measuring the corpse after all. Fishing, maybe. The way old friends fish. To see if anyone was still home behind the Lu family's walls. Someone's home, Jiang. Keep my wine warm. My son's ambush came at Horsehoof Mountain, 2 days out, sword light falling on my boat out of a clear sky. And my second son, who had spent the whole return flight insisting he felt eyes on us while his siblings teased him for paranoia, got the grim satisfaction of being right. And I want to walk you through it, because this fight is my whole afterlife in one scene. They came at my children confident, and on paper they'd earned it. 2 mid-foundation killers with fresh 3rd-rank artifacts versus a Foundation 4, a Foundation 3, and a boy at Qi Refining Peak, all 3 visibly loaded with treasure. The first sword Qi arrived before the introductions, aimed to take Fu Lin's head off his shoulders and the negotiation off the table. He scattered it with his Qingyin blade, saw Guo Tao's face behind the attack, and did the whole arithmetic in one beat. The eager trader, the too good deal, the sword we'd bought. A scam with a 2-day fuse. Guo Tao led with his best, the Sky Ruins God-slaying blade, a top-shelf 3rd-rank artifact fresh from the convention floor, driven with full killing intent. It met Fu Lin's natal Tai Yi sword head-on and bounced, spinning off wobbling like a dropped plate, and I watched the confusion bloom on the killer's face in real time. A 4th-rank artifact, he breathed, because that was the only explanation his world had room for. No, friend, you hit my son. The Tai Yi sword doesn't outrank your blade, it outbelieves it. Wei Feng took the other flank and drew my daughter, and his opening was genuinely good. I'll critique the man fairly before the part where he dies. The Black Cloud Banner, a torrent of crushing dark that swats aside anything below 3rd-rank mid-grade, forced Mei Ling fully onto defense under the mixed origin Golden Bell. Then, instead of wasting strength on a shield he couldn't crack, he switched to the fire whistle and started cooking the bell. Heat soaking through gold, the temperature inside climbing degree by degree. She's a pill in a furnace, he crowed, delighted with himself. Points for imagery, none whatsoever for survival instinct. And at the rail, my 3rd child suffered. Jin Hai, Qi refining great perfection, sword already drawn, lunged to help his little sister, and I hit him with my full father voice. You are Qi refining. This is a foundation battle. You are luggage. Sit. He froze mid-step, vibrating, watching his brother and sister take fire while his sword hand opened and closed on nothing. And he made a vow through his teeth, right there on the deck, no drama, just fact. If I live through being useless today, I will reach Foundation establishment if it kills me. The system and I both took him at his word, and both of us started budgeting for it. Then I opened my wallet, because that's what I am now, the wallet of God, and my hours are always. 300 points, cultivation boost, and my eldest jumped a full realm for 1 hour. Foundation 4 to Foundation 5, mid-parry. Guo Tao felt the pressure change like a diver feeling depth, groped for explanations. Hidden strength? Pills? and found none in stock. 400 more. Full chi and blood restore plus mana endurance into my daughter, her tank refilled mid-siege, her bell suddenly costing half as much to hold. She stopped playing Furnace, dropped the bell entirely, and came out swinging with a demon-locking ring in one hand and her natal sword in the other. The fight's geometry inverted in 10 seconds flat. Glotao read the new math and ran. My gentle, bookkeeping, benefit-of-the-doubt eldest son ran him down on wind-thunder wings, cracked the Vajra ring over him like a falling hill, and when the killer burned 6 stacked defensive talismans in one desperate flare, 6 layers of light, his whole rainy day fund, the Tai Yi sword sheared through all 6 like wet paper and took his head. Wei Feng lasted long enough to see that, scream, "Why must you push me?" which is a remarkable sentence from a man mid-robbery, and bolt the other way. Where Mei Ling's flying sword was already parked across his escape angle like a toll gate. Fu Lin arrived a breath later and answered the question on the record. It's exactly you I'm killing. My loot? 4 third-rank artifacts, including the blade and banner they'd bought to kill us with, 18,000 stones, a bottle of cultivation powder, and... The universe has a bookkeeping sense of humor, a second Jade Marrow golden branch, because Wei Feng had traded for one too. Killers really are the economy's most generous donors. We cleaned the deck, burned what was evil, banked what wasn't, and flew home with Jin Hai sitting in the bow, silent, staring at his own hands, already in the cave in his mind. And so I came to Jin Hai's turn at the door, and the family made sure the door was hung on golden hinges. The handover was a small ceremony in itself, and I attended in my usual capacity of invisible witness. Fu Lin pressed the pill and the moonlight powder into his brother's hands, and Mei Ling stood by with an expression I knew the weight of, because this was the 3rd time Foundation establishment treasure had passed through this family's hands. And the first 2 times, Jin Hai had given his place away. The divine wood, yielded to his elder brother without me asking. The war-earned pill from the heavenly fire palace, waved on toward his little sister's reserve with a joke about cowardice. My loud, greedy son, greedy for talismans, greedy for artifacts, greedy for heavenly roots he pesters me about to this day, had twice been quietly ungreedy about the only treasure that actually gates a cultivator's whole life. Mei Ling remembered. You could see the remembering. She told him, softly, "Congratulations, second brother," before he'd even taken the pill, and he laughed it off, because that's the assigned role, and everyone in the room let him. My boy's odds, when I finished stacking them, 50% from the pill, 10 more from the moonlight powder. And then the shop, which I swear has developed a sense of drama, chose that exact week to stock a 3-star breakthrough bottleneck. 30%, the deluxe version, and I bought it before the listing finished rendering. 90%. If he failed at 90, I told him, we'd have to conclude the heavens were personally invested, and he laughed the Jin Hai laugh and walked into the cave like a man late for his own coronation. He also got my Sect's newest infrastructure warming up outside his door. The spirit gathering pool had finished its half-year construction. A sunken training basin that flatly doubles cultivation speed, centerpiece statue of an armored war god included. Don't ask me, the system has an interior decorator. Fu Lin tested it first and came out reporting 1 cycle of energy in 3 breaths, with the face of a man renegotiating his own future. No other sect in Chu Country has one. Yes, I'm bragging. Bragging is my stipend. The founder's stipend. 6 months I waited. Then one morning the spiritual energy of the whole mountainside leaned toward his cave door like grass in a wind, funneled and poured. And the door opened, and my second son walked out, with Foundation establishment rolling off him in waves he made 0 effort to suppress, announcing his success at a volume they plausibly heard in Guangde. It's done! I did it! There is also a day when I, Li Jin Hai, stand at Foundation establishment. Mei Ling arrived by sword before he finished the second sentence. The disciples cheering scattered birds off 3 peaks. Officially, quietly, arithmetically, and I ran this sum 3 times for pleasure, 3 Foundation establishment cultivators. More than the Hung Yue sect. The ledger between my houses had flipped, 30 years of it, and somewhere across the prefecture, their elders were about to receive the news over breakfast. The mouse had finished becoming a wolf, and my wolf had my children's faces. He road-tested my investment immediately. Half a year in a cave leaves a man with opinions that need expressing. So he begged my mission board for something with teeth and got the Danyun mountain job. 9 rogue cultivators robbing the largest trade road in 1,000 li, led by one Jin Hong. A bitter old wolf at Foundation 1 who'd gotten his own breakthrough pill by ambushing a clan caravan and eating the survivors' futures. A man who preyed exclusively on travelers too weak to matter. Jin Hai read the brief and smiled the family smile. Fu Lin tried to send Mei Ling along as backup. Jin Hai's response? Do I have to live under your wing forever? Plus, the practical note that if he couldn't win, he'd simply run, which, for Jin Hai, counts as a mature risk assessment. Father tucked a thunder talisman in his pocket anyway, over his objections. Fathers do that. His plan was a con, and I confess to you I didn't see it coming, because my loud son turns out to be a patient hunter when it counts. I tracked the mission from home through my map, and what I saw impressed me. He scouted the gang a full day first. He watched them work. He noted the leader's paranoia and scrapped the night raid that might scatter them. Then at midday, he suppressed his aura down to chi-refining 6th layer, put on his dustiest travel robe, and ambled down the trade road alone, radiating the exact energy of a juicy bun with a coin purse. I taught him none of this. I want partial credit anyway. The gang took the bait so fast it was almost flattering. 8 chi-refining bandits fell on him from both ditches, artifacts flying in a disorganized hail, and the bun woke up. The blazing sky sword came off his back, already burning. It split the lead bandit's compass artifact, and then the bandit. The trade road got very educational very quickly. The survivors recorded commentary in order. He's an 8th layer, at least. That's a 3rd rank artifact. That's a second 3rd rank artifact. Foundation establishment. Run. Jin Hong did not run. His greed did his thinking for him. 2 3rd rank artifacts on 1 young master was a retirement plan standing right there in the dust. So he threw his whole arsenal at my boy. A ring blade, cracked on contact. A swarm of black dagger swords, answered by the Sky Ruins god-slaying blade. A fire thunder bottle, whose thunder my fire-rooted son cut out of the air with what I can only describe as visible disappointment. The old wolf even tried the classic, fellow Taoist, let's stop here, no harm done, which, from a career murderer of travelers, drew a 2-word rejection I would frame if ghosts could hold nails. That's inappropriate. 30 exchanges. Then the blazing sky sword crossed the old wolf's neck, and the trade road changed management. The 8 junior bandits attempted their overdue retirement and matched their leader instead. A Foundation cultivator runs down chi-refining fugitives the way weather runs down a picnic. 9 bandits, 0 survivors, 0 of my talismans spent, 1 very satisfied second son flying home with a bounty bracelet, having proven the only thing he'd actually gone there to prove, that the youngest brother of the family no longer needs the wing. Noted, my son. Formally, in my ledger. My wing stays available on weekends. And then, because the heavens have comedic timing, the sect threw a wedding. Han Bo and Lu Xuelian, the wooden head and the beast tamer, after years of pill-shoving and lakeside stammering, quietly became Dao companions, which among cultivators usually merits a nod and a shared cave. Fu Lin overruled the quiet. He declared a full red lantern wedding for the new year, and the mountain threw itself into it like a sect with something to prove, because it was my first wedding since the fall. Lanterns on every eve of my mountain, the whole disciple roster crammed into the main hall, the bows, to heaven and earth, to the ancestors, to each other. With the groom so nervous he nearly bowed to the buffet, and the hall roaring the bridal chamber chant while the junior girls went pink and calculating in the same breath. Xuelian had gone looking for her birth village beforehand and found only empty ruins and no one to invite. So the sect turned out in force to be the family on her side of the hall, which is what a sect is for, and I watched my orphan bride get married in front of 200 people who all counted. Then Han Bo was carried off, thoroughly drunk by his classmates, the tables emptied by attrition, and my 3 children ended the night alone at one table with a jar of my own peach blossom wine. And I got the scene a dead father doesn't dare ask heaven for. Mei Ling, my aloof, precise, terrifying Mei Ling, 2 cups in, because Foundation cultivators can burn off alcohol with a thought, and she pointedly wasn't. Flushed pink, propping her chin on her hand, insisting I'm not drunk with the diction of the extremely drunk, then standing up to prove it and sitting immediately back down. Fu Lin confiscating her cup with the tenderness of a man diffusing a talisman. Jin Hai, 40 cups deep and volume rising, refilling it behind his back. And then the interrogation, brother to brother. Han Bo is 20 years your junior and married, elder brother. Is there a girl? Is there anyone? At which point the dead father in the rafters could not resist joining the assault down my family channel. Jin Hai has a point. Bring me a daughter-in-law. I hear Fang Ruo Shi of Nine Cooled Mountain is single, talented, well-connected. Technically, it's marrying up. My eldest developed a headache with 3 sources and repeated his eternal answer, the sect comes first, while his brother howled and his father took notes for next year's campaign. And then the question turned, gently, to Mei Ling. Little sister, is there someone you? And my drunk daughter looked into her wine and said, softly, without any joke in it at all, I am devoted to the Tao and do not wish to marry. Isn't it good to stay in the sect and be with all of you? And her brothers went quiet, and the lanterns hissed, and I hovered over that table and I thought, it is, little girl. It's the best thing there is. Stay as long as the staying is happy, my girl. Nobody at this table will ever rush you. And one seat here will always be kept empty and warm for your mother. That's the mask off. Back to work. Because the next stretch is where my machine stopped being a sect and started being a power, and it started, as power often does, with ants. First, my housekeeping. Lingzhi powder came off Shouying's furnace. 72 pills from her first batches, a 70% formation rate on a recipe she'd never seen before, and went into the hands of 5 senior disciples, pushing the whole late Qi refining cohort toward the peak in formation. My next generation of foundation candidates, fueling up on my schedule. Then the Zhang family came to me drowning. They were a small, local clan, 16 Qi refining cultivators, first-rank vein, spirit fields, their whole livelihood. And after a heavy rain, an army ant nest had erupted beside their lands. 600,000 ants under a 7th-layer queen. They'd killed 30,000 and lost their entire year's fields for the trouble, and the tide was now drifting toward Guangde County, which made it my business twice over. Old Zhao Longwei vouched for their patriarch. We sent the 5 disciple squad. The clearing was a textbook siege of the world's smallest army, and I supervised from the tunnel ceilings like the ghost of a foreman. The nest was a catacomb city underground. My squad went in under a mist concealment art, Wen Ruolan walking point with a borrowed fire gourd artifact that none of the Zhang family were strong enough to wield. A detail their patriarch confessed with his ears going red. Then a full day of methodical burning, flame in waves. Escape tunnels corked by the Zhang cultivators, the horde compressed backward, chamber by chamber, until 500,000 ants were ash, and the queen was cornered in the deepest gallery with her last 10,000. And here, Wen Ruolan, mid-battle, said the 8 words that define my sect's whole culture now. Wait, this thing might be useful to us. Because army ant queens, fed properly, lay deposits of raw red copper. Forge-grade copper. A little egg-laying foundry. I'm not joking, and neither was she. They took the queen alive, silk net, a pinch of knockout incense, into a spirit beast box, and shipped her home to Lu Shulian's growing menagerie, where she is, as I speak, contentedly producing artifact components for the sect that burned her empire. Waste not. I have never been prouder of a looting instinct. And I say that as this family's founding looter. But the real prize was under the nest. Clearing the final gallery, Wen Ruolan's earth-attuned senses snagged on something impossible. Earth element spiritual qi, rich and rising, where the county's registers said none existed. My squad dug. Then my children flew out and dug. Then I floated down through the bedrock personally, traced the thing end to end with my own senses, and came up doing ghost cartwheels. A brand new, second-rank spirit vein, 3,000 li of it, born wild in the dark under Guangde's doorstep, freshly matured, claimed by absolutely no one. I have watched clans go to war over veins a third this size, and it had been discovered jointly, my squad and their patriarch, in the same hour. Which made the next conversation the most important one of the year, and my eldest played it perfectly. He didn't seize the vein, though he could have, and everyone in the room knew the arithmetic. He laid the arithmetic on the table instead. Patriarch Zhang, be honest, can 16 Qi refining cultivators hold a treasure like this once word spreads? They could not, and Zhang Deming was wise enough to say so out loud. So Fu Lin offered the other road. Attach your clan to the Qingshan sect. Move your whole household onto the new vein. Share its use with us. Build under our protection. And if trouble ever comes for the Zhang family, it answers to us. The patriarch thought about it for the length of 1 cup of tea and took the deal with both hands. And just like that, the Qingshan sect had its first vassal clan in 30 years. A second spirit vein named Shaohan Mountain, 30 fresh acres of fields going in, and my Ta Yun herds grazing on land that had been an ant war a month before. Hung Yue's intelligence people duly reported all this, and their elders sniffed a second-rank vein. How quaint. Our sect vein is 4th rank, and declined to care. Even Elder Xie's people looked once and passed, which suited me with professional satisfaction, because the pattern of the last 5 years was now fully visible to anyone tracking the slope instead of the altitude. They could no longer afford to sneer at us, and increasingly, they could not afford not to. The shop kept escalating like it was reading my diary. A 3-star spirit vein upgrade, bought. Green Lotus Mountain itself began climbing toward 3rd rank. A 3-star opportunity, a literal bottled lucky break, which I poured over Wang Zixuan's head like anointing oil, and which is loaded and ticking as we speak. A root enhancement for Jin Hai at last. Triple roots refined to firewood dual, upon which my second son, instead of thanking me, asked if father couldn't push a little harder and make it a heavenly root. Do you think heavenly roots grow on trees? Both his siblings did, technically, but that's not the point. Denied. He took it with the grace of a man saving the receipt. And the romance subplot got a 2nd season, which I attended in full, invisibly, with snacks. It started, I swear to you, as a routine job. Qi State's Guangling prefecture had gone lawless. 2 great sects were brawling over an ancient secret realm, and nobody was policing the countryside. So the monsters had gotten bold, and my system had posted bounties. Mei Ling flew north alone for the biggest one, a man-eating tree demon on Tianan Mountain, Foundation 2, 10 zhang of ancient timber with a taste for travelers. I teleported along, because my daughter alone in a foreign prefecture makes a dead man restless. We arrived to find the tree demon already mid-fight, with Qin Jie. Freshly Foundation establishment himself, riding a new master-gifted sword, and losing with great politeness, his blades skidding off bark that shrugged at 3rd-rank steel. My daughter said, "Fellow Taoist Yen?" in a voice with actual surprise in it, which for her is an aria, threw her demon-locking ring to swat aside the branch about to spear his back, and the reunion was conducted mid-battle, as this family's reunions usually are. The tree was genuinely tough. Qin Jie burned his trump card, a 2nd-tier divine firmament edict, and the thunderbolt that should have cremated a Foundation 1 cultivator merely gave the monster a bad haircut and a worse temper. He stood in the fading glare looking politely bankrupt. "Enrage it," I told my daughter. "An angry tree forgets to guard its wounds." So she did what the Tai Yi art does to legendary defenses. Chasing Wind took off half its trunk, a thread of sky split its wooden wall and the demon behind it, and when it tore up its own roots to flee, she locked it in the ring and finished it with the calm of a woman deadheading roses. Qin Jie watched the whole thing with his mouth slightly open. She gave him the salvageable timber, you kept it busy. You contributed over his flustered objections, which is my daughter's version of warm. And then the boy did it. Straightened his robe, achieved the elaborate carelessness of a man who has rehearsed in a mirror, and offered to escort her home. Seeing as he was, coincidentally, headed toward Lushan Prefecture anyway. Anywhere is cultivation, isn't it? Son, I have played this game. I invented several of its openings. My daughter went quiet and, I will treasure this, glanced at the empty air beside her, at the exact spot where she correctly guessed her dead father was hovering. "Well," said the glance. "So I did what fathers do, a background check at the speed of thought. Master, Zhao Qingfeng, crystallization elder, decent man, once wanted to be my disciple, vetted. Record, fought beside her 3 times, never once postured, vetted. Intentions, written across his face in characters visible from orbit, transparent. I sent down my paternal verdict. He's attentive to you. If you're willing, travel together." What followed was the most heavily chaperoned courtship in cultivation history, disguised as a bounty spree, and I ran the itinerary personally. I quietly bought 4 more mission postings along their route, because if the boy wanted to show off, I'd provide staging, and if my daughter wanted to watch him try, I'd provide plausible cover. The bear demon outside Jiaojia village first, where I found the beast for them mid-hunt, and they saved a hapless young clan cultivator in the bargain. He asked their names with hero worship shining off him, and got, in order, Qingshan Sect and Divine Firmament Palace, and will probably tell that story badly for 60 years. Then the water fiend of the He family pond, a crab the size of 2 elephants, which I located by diving through the lake bed myself, being the only member of this expedition who doesn't get wet. Mei Ling yanked it out of the water by ring and finished it before it understood it was in a fight. Then the iron red worm hive, where Qinjie's poison mist idea genuinely impressed her. I saw it land. Her eyebrow moved a full 1/4 inch, which on my daughter is a standing ovation. And last, a bandit chief on the Lutong Road who made the traditional demands and received the traditional outcome. 4 bounties, cleared as a 2-blade team that got smoother with every stop. I billed none of it to romance. All of it was romance. He delivered her to my gate, stayed 1 courteous day, promised to visit again, and bowed himself off to keep wandering. She said nothing about it. She has continued saying nothing about it, very loudly, at regular intervals, ever since. I can wait. I have nothing but time and a betting interest. Meanwhile, my talent conveyor stamped out 2 more specialists. A beast tamer upgrade landed on little Mei Lan at the fish lake. Shuilian's quiet protege, minding the 3-eyed spirit fish we'd netted alive out of Qinglan Lake that spring, a whole 2nd fishery's worth. One moment she was squatting on the shore asking a fish why it had 3 eyes. The next, a stranger's voice in her skull announced, "This venerable one will now enhance your beast taming," and a rank's worth of knowledge poured into her head. Most people scream. Mei Lan sprang up, scanned the empty shore, put the whole thing together in about 4 seconds. Sect ancestor, has to be. The elders can't do this, and I know their voices, and simply bowed to the air. Thank you, senior. Then decided, all on her own, that a miracle this strange was best kept private and told no one. Composure, deduction, discretion. That girl earned my instant respect and a line in my own long-term plans. And a 3-star random talent hit Wen Ruolan and came up artifact refining, so I did something I'd been sliding toward for a while. I summoned her and my daughter to the cave mouth together and semi-officially introduced the ancestor as an active, ongoing concern. Watching my iron senior sister process the voice, from suspicion to recognition to a kowtow so fast it blurred, was its own reward. She was apprenticed to Mei Ling on the spot. My forge had an heir. Every organ of my sect now had an heir. You see the theme. I died as an irreplaceable man once. Never again. I also got a new toy that season, and I have to tell you about the thief because the system grew a feature mid-game. A hidden task popped. One Cui Cheng, a notorious bandit of the rivers and lakes wanted by the Imperial Court, lying low at the Flower Immortal Inn in Jiang City. 5th layer, small fry, big bounty. I sent Zhao Min and Zhou Jian and tagged along for the atmosphere. And there, at the table across from my boys, I saw something I'd never seen before. A red question mark, floating over a stranger's head like a quest marker in the games of my first life. I poked it, obviously. The system unfolded a dossier. Kong Fei Yu, of the Empty Thief Sect, a real disciple of the reclusive thieves school whose famous name my bandit had been fraudulently batteries for years. Here to personally erase the imposter for dragging the school's reputation through the mud. Perhaps you can cooperate, suggested my system, having apparently decided to start introducing me to people. I'm dead and networking, and now heaven itself is passing me business cards. So I steered Zhao Min over to make the offer, enjoyed the boy's brief crisis when the mysterious thief turned out to have never heard of us. Then who told the ancestor he was here? Does the ancestor read minds? And watched 3 young men run a 2-day stakeout that would have made any magistrate weep with pride. The imposter was disguised, of course, but he hung his saber on the right hip, a left-hander's tell. And when they bribed the waiter's route and served his lunch themselves, he ate left-handed, and that was that. At noon the next day, they took him alive in the common room in 4 moves. Main called, wine pot thrown and bisected, all 3 exits already owned, 1 flying knife lotus from the Empty Thief Sect's signature art as punctuation. The county handed my boys the reward. The innkeeper nearly wept with relief, and Kong Fei Yu vanished over the rooftops with my sect's name quietly filed in his excellent memory. The system paid out in reputation and another random talent, which came up Sword Dao and landed on Wang Zixuan, and that particular seed gets its own harvest at the end of this story. Which brings me to the sea, the swindle, and the best trade run of my son's life. 1 ingredient short of my recipe, golden lotus, and the only stock on the continent's edge was at the Wuyin Island Barter Convention, a once-in-20 years market in the Gizli Sea. Fulin went alone, a day's flight over open water, and I teleported in to chaperone because Wuyin Island is a coral reef with an economy, 7 markets, a no-fly restriction, a 5th-rank grand formation overhead, and a population where half the shoppers are also, part-time, the sharks. He landed, with me on his shoulder, in Purple Cloud Market, the lawless one. No governing power, no rules, stalls of stolen goods and demon artifacts sold from under coats, and shopped like his father's son. Cheap demon cores by the batch, monster meat for the disciples' table, eyes open, aura polite. And at one shabby stall, a skinny peddler with a hungry smile leaned in and offered him destiny at a discount. A torn old map, spirit-veiled, whispered to mark the legacy cave of a golden core ancestor. Asking price, 1,000 stones. My son looked at half a map promising the moon, offered 100, and walked away from the counter-offer until the peddler cracked and took it. Pocket change for a maybe. I approved the trade and privately noted the anomaly. Nobody sells a real golden core lead for 1/10 of their first price. Something about that stall smelled of patience. Back at the inn, behind sealed windows, he unveiled the thing for both of us, and then went very still and dug into his own storage pouch and brought out the other half map, the one Lu Shulian had pulled off Feng Yuexi's corpse a year ago and half a continent away. The torn edges matched. I floated over my son's shoulder while he pieced together a complete map to an immortal's cave on an island in the vast sea. 30,000 li past the eastern edge of everything we know, across water that crystallization cultivators cross in convoys or not at all. Too far, too deep, not yet. But into my vault it went, next to the resurrection ticket and the block talisman and the blood oath ledger. My vault was accumulating a very specific mood. The map, of course, was also bait. The peddler, Shaolei, Foundation 3, 20 years in the business, ran a tidy little industry with a partner. Every treasure on that stall was perfumed with a tracking scent, and buyers who flashed enough wealth got followed out of town and harvested. The map alone had been sold and reclaimed off 5 separate corpses. My son's cold bargaining had actually saved his life twice over. 100-stone customer reads as a pauper, so they'd shelved him for later. But later was already scheduled. What unscheduled it was greed. The same week, the same stall ran its script on 3 divine firmament palace disciples, tracked them onto the empty road to White Elephant Market, and sprang the trap in daylight. And my son, walking that same road, crested the rise onto a fight in progress. 2 mid-foundation killers grinding down a palace defender, while 2 juniors watched helplessly from the ditch. Familiar juniors, Zhao Gang and Su Hong, the pair who'd stood with my family against demons, twice. My son didn't even announce himself. The Tai Yi sword came off his brow into the swindler partner's shield artifact, broke it, and broke him. Shaolei recognized his 100-stone pauper, understood the whole shape of his own bad week in one flash, and ran. Into a wall of wind thunder wings, and a sword he had personally gift-wrapped with tracking scent. It's the little ironies I live for, figuratively. 2 mid-foundation swindlers versus Li Fu Lin turned out to be a genre of fight that lasts 4 moves total. Both dead, their storage pouches audited into my accounts, the palace trio rescued by the Qingshan Sect 4. They counted on their fingers, the 3rd separate time, and the map cleanly, permanently ours, its previous owner having retired from tracking anybody anywhere. The rescue paid social dividends immediately, introductions rippled, and by convention day my son was seated with 3 names worth remembering. Zhou Ruixue of the 1,000-Star Island Bai family, Golden Core clan, old money, sharp eyes. Qin Haoran of the Yushan Mountain Sword family, a flint-faced blade cultivator of few words whose sword intent ran clean and righteous. I checked. I'm a connoisseur. And Fang Shui of the Juhua sect, ice-rooted, unhurried, a friend of both. 600 cultivators in the Misty Pavilion, by my count, over 20 at crystallization, and presiding over it all an actual Golden Core elder, Mo Ming, who opened proceedings by releasing his aura across the hall like a hand pressing down on 600 necks, and remarking that rule breakers would find him unmerciful. Nobody planned to break any rules. Several people visibly rescheduled rules they had planned to break. The trading was theater worth my whole trip alone. The house led with a black jade breakthrough pill, a core formation advancing elixir only one family in the entire sea can brew. And two crystallization heavyweights promptly went to war over it, Elder Guo Chang opening with 3 ingots of cold essence metal, and Feng Yue of the Luo Yun sect crashing the bid out of pure documented spite on the grounds that she disliked his family, informing him before the entire hall that treasure goes to the highest bidder, and what she wanted it for was none of his business. She won with a 4th-rank mirror. He sat down the color of a bruise. Aristocrats, the same in every century of my acquaintance. My son, meanwhile, shopped like his dead father taught him, let the glamour lots go. A golden core saber art went for 150,000 stones to applause, and I talked him out of even bidding, because its forging requirements would have cost us another 100,000. Read the total price, children. Instead, he took a superb 3rd-rank defensive treasure at fair value, the Myriad Manifestation Heavenly Dragon Tablet, plus 2 moonlight elixirs from a rationed batch. And then the house brought out a tray of 100 golden lotus, priced modestly, trade only. And while the hall yawned at the mid-tier lot, the heir of the Qingshan sect stood up and calmly exchanged artifacts for the maximum 10. 10 lotus. Ingredient 4. My recipe, complete. Somewhere back home, a Foundation establishment pill production line quietly clicked into possibility, and the fate of every peak stage disciple we would ever train stopped belonging to Market Luck and started belonging to us. The new friends, though, hadn't befriended him for nothing. They had a ruin, a dead core formation hermit's cave in a volcanic fire domain, sealed, treasure visible through the wards, guarded by a Foundation 6 demon beast that had beaten Zhou Ruixue and Qin Haoran back twice. They wanted his sword. First, they wanted proof of it, so Qin Haoran bowed, drew his brand new immortal flame sword, and offered a spar. 3 exchanges. On the 3rd, his blade left his control entirely and stuck in the dirt, and the flint-faced swordsman surrendered with the broad grin of a man delighted to be outclassed. Contract signed, blood oath sealed, expedition mounted. My expedition flew 2 days on Zhou Ruixue's boat to an unnamed, desolate island, and the site introduced itself from the horizon. A dormant volcano with a crater 2,000 zhang across, breathing warm, spirit-rich air like a sleeping forge. The hermit had converted the entire volcanic interior into his estate, a fire domain 5,000 li around, and I drifted over the rim thinking, professionally, that this was prime real estate for a fire-rooted second son I happened to own. The clearing went by depth like a tide chart, and I rode along the whole way, invisible auditor, 1 deck above the mortals. The outer domain, fire vermin at early chi refining, which Qin Haoran deleted with throwing needles without bothering to draw his sword. 56 of them, like a man deadheading a garden. The middle depth, late chi refining beasts in the dozens, handled by the 2 women while everyone hoarded the real reserves. And the deep crater, where the heat bent the air, held what I'd come to appraise. 5 true Foundation establishment demon beasts, 1 at the 3rd layer, 3 at the 4th. And the alpha, 6th layer, edging 7th by my reading, the monster that had twice sent Zhou Ruixue and Qin Haoran home bleeding, marinating for years in a domain that amplified its every flame. Zhou Ruixue laid out a careful plan of pairs and delays. My son listened politely, said I'll take the big one alone, you 3 mind the other 4. And was already accelerating on wind thunder wings before her horrified protest cleared her throat. I'd love to claim I ordered that. I didn't. I just flew after him, grinning like the dead man I am. The alpha met my boy with a river of domain-boosted fire. Spirit flame at 4th rank vein purity, the kind that renders a Foundation cultivator down to ash and regret. He put the Myriad Manifestation Heavenly Dragon Tablet in its path. The defensive treasure from the convention, earning back its price in 1 transaction. And he walked his shield through the fire like a man wading upstream. The beast, whose entire career was built on nobody surviving the river, had no second act prepared. It condensed its flame shield. His first full-power stroke of the Tai E art tore the shield open. It began to dodge. The second stroke was a thread of sky with a Foundation 5 body behind it, and the 6th layer terror of the fire domain came apart in 2 burning halves before its own flame had finished falling. 1 exchange and change by my stopwatch. The other three, mid-melee with their 4 beasts, watched the alpha die in their peripheral vision and briefly forgot their own fights. Then my son waded in beside them, cut a 4th layer beast off Fang Shui's flank with 1 pass, and the cleanup became a formality. The team stood in the settling ash, recalibrating everything they thought they'd hired. Qin Haoran, who had lost the spar in 3 moves and thought he understood the gap, was quietly revising it upward. Then, with me hovering at the keyhole, Zhou Ruishui's barrier-breaking pearl chewed through the cave's century-worn wards. The doors opened on air thick enough to drink, and the cave told us its story, and the expedition went quiet. Inside, I found a burly man in his finest robes, cross-legged at the center of a ring of treasures, 100 years dead and perfectly preserved. Zhou Ruishui bowed to the corpse before she touched a single thing. "Senor, we apologize for the intrusion," and the other 3 followed, and I marked it. Manners toward the dead are, take it from the dead, the cheapest possible test of character, and everyone in that room passed. The strong stage crystallization body doesn't rot for 3 centuries. The man looked like he might open his eyes and ask my business. In a way, he did. His storage pouch held a letter. The hermit had a name, Wei Changhong, 36th and last patriarch of the Li family of Lingshu Island. His letter, preserved a century for exactly this moment, laid it out without 1 syllable of self-pity. A family that kept to itself and troubled no one, slaughtered wholesale by the Yang family for their spirit vein. His own escape, bought with the lives of the elders who shielded him, each one falling in turn on the long run over the water. His return, months later and too late, to an island already renamed. The Yang ancestor had forged his golden core on the Li family's plundered foundation, which is a sentence that should require a content warning. And then a decade in this crater, selling off his family's remaining legacy piece by piece to gather every treasure that might force his own golden core breakthrough, so that one Li might live long enough and grow strong enough to collect the debt. He died on that threshold, alone, mid-attempt, the last of his name in a ring of treasures that were never treasures at all. They were the war chest of a vengeance that never got to happen, and the inheritance came with a lock, because he'd thought of that too. Karma restrictions on every major piece. Swear a blood oath of the immortal Tao to uproot the Yang family. Now a golden core clan of genuinely rotten reputation, demon-friendly, mortal culling, fat on stolen land within 300 years. Or take nothing. My 4 read that letter in silence, and the silence had weight. A blood oath of the immortal Tao is not a promise. Break it and the heavens themselves foreclose. Qin Haoran spoke first. "I'll swear." Flat as a dropped stone, and then, while the others were still deciding, added the thing that finished settling my opinion of him into permanent respect. "And we carry the senior's bones out for burial. We've taken his karma. We owe him rest." Zhou Ruixue swore second. The Yong family needs uprooting on its own merits. Fang Xue third. And my son last, after I told him honestly down my private channel, "Oath or no oath, your father will see you to golden core within 300 years, regardless. Decide freely." He swore anyway. Good. A sword should owe some debts on purpose. The split was done, with me auditing invisibly at Zhou Ruixue's island villa on a 4th rank vein. A guest stop that mostly served to show my children what old money looks like, and to plant a quiet seed of, when will Qingshan look like this, in my eldest's chest, where I want it growing. And it made everyone rich. Contribution weighted, and nobody argued the weights. The man who soloed the alpha took the largest share. My son came home with 2 4th-rank artifacts he can't even wield until core formation, 3 3rd-rank ones he can, 7 spirit herbs whose names I hadn't said aloud in a century. 1 crimson vine alone worth 500,000 stones. A blazing fire crystal banked for Jinhai's distant core formation, and 1 item nobody else at that table could have valued. An ancient pill recipe from the legendary insect devil himself. The Spirit Nurturing Pill. The lost formula for breeding ancient spirit insects. I happen to keep 3 golden silkworms in a mulberry grove. Silk that can't be cut or burned. Adults that can puppet a nascent soul cultivator from the inside, currently the size of my thumb and producing a ball of silk a year because we've been feeding gods on garden leaves. The recipe went home to Shou Ying's furnace marked urgent, and I spent a pleasant hour imagining the face of the first enemy to meet a fully grown puppet silk swarm. It's a good face. Some future enemy of mine is wearing it right now and doesn't know. Homecoming was a festival of distribution, and I presided over every handoff. A bell and a mirror to Mei Ling, war talismans to Jin Hai, gear to the twins, pills all around. And my shopping reached its final form, Spirit Beast Affinity for both animal keepers, a marrow-cleansing pill recipe with its seed stock, resource optimizations pushing the medicine fields and the bee colony up a rank, the mountain veins next upgrade to 3rd rank paid in cooking, and one purchase I made with a completely steady hand, a 3-star body protection talisman, proof against a physical blow from anything up to mid-crystallization, bound quietly onto my daughter. She'll never know until the day she needs it. That's the correct amount of knowing. My prestige balance crossed 10,000 that week. The dead man's wallet had become the deepest in the prefecture, and I'd like the record to show I earned every point sleeping, scheming, and shamelessly eavesdropping, which left me one lit fuse, the opportunity I'd poured on Wang Zixuan. Quick word from me first about what that sword Dao talent had already set in motion. The moment it landed on Wang Zixuan, I'd made the call I'd been circling for years and handed him the Taiyi Tianshu sword art itself. My school of the sword taking its first air outside my blood. The ceremony was Fu Lin pressing the jade slip into the boy's confused hands, with the words, "This is old ancestor's intention," and the boy's face cycling through disbelief, arithmetic, and the horrified memory of every skeptical thing he'd ever said to the mysterious voice. Did I offend the ancestor? Before landing on a gratitude so fierce, he trained 6 hours that same night. Sworn to secrecy, of course. The world still thinks I'm asleep. The world's information is out of date on several fronts. The opportunity fired days later on a mountain called Green Ox, 8,000 li out, where my freshly sword-anointed senior disciple stumbled through a hillside crack into an ancient cave, and straight into a wall of bronze puppet soldiers with spears. The system pinged me his coordinates with the tact of a fire alarm. I teleported in and took stock. 4 armored constructs, humanoid, expressionless, each at the 8th layer, and, per the system's helpful appraisal, these were the decayed versions. In their prime, before 2 centuries ate their spirit stones, all 4 had been Foundation establishment. Guarding, which meant something worth guarding. And one Wang Zixuan, peak of the 8th layer, fencing the nearest one with a week-old supreme sword art and old borrowed courage. His chasing wind and pursuing moon already good enough to score the bronze, not yet good enough to open it. The boy learns fast. Bronze learns nothing and doesn't tire. So I decided the occasion deserved a product test. The shop's newest toy, a divine sword armor-piercing talisman, 200 points, which summons a controllable golden blade rated to kill Foundation cultivators, and which, I discovered on first swing, is not a one-shot, but a reusable weapon until its charge runs dry. It went through the first puppet like an opinion through a committee. Zixuan retreated on command and watched a golden sword out of nowhere execute 4 ancient war constructs with tidy chest punctures, and greeted the familiar presence behind it with delight instead of fear. Old ancestor. The correct religion is forming nicely in that one. Deeper in, the cave stopped pretending to be small. 25 more puppets ringed a sealed inner sanctum. I bought a second talisman on the spot. My thrift has a dial, and the dial has a setting labeled, "My disciple is surrounded." And we cleared them in a long, methodical grind, my golden blade and his green bamboo sword working shifts. The sanctum door itself read as Foundation Grade Restriction, beyond 1 disciple and 1 dead man. So I called home down my family channel. Mei Ling, Jin Hai, drop everything, bring swords. And my 2 younger children arrived by nightfall at Ghost Express urgency. 2 hours of joint bombardment cracked the door, and the final guard chamber was waiting for us. 14 puppets at genuine, undecayed Foundation establishment grade, preserved by the Sanctum's own spirit-gathering array. What followed was a proper family battle royale, and I conducted from the ceiling like a war god with a baton. My daughter's natal sword sheared bronze and spear hafts in the same strokes. My second son's twin blades hammered the flanks. My golden talisman blade took the second layer constructs 2 at a time on my say-so. And Zixuan stood at the door, watching 3 tiers of my sect's future happen at once, taking notes so hard I could hear it from mid-air. And past all of it, on a meditation cushion, I found a woman 300 years dead, with her body uncorrupted, a wooden hairpin in her hair.
Zhao Hanyun,
founding ancestor of the Xuansu sect of Yongning Prefecture, a sect of women, 236 years of legacy, annihilated not by rivals but by evil demons of something her letter called the Demon Abyss, while her disciples fought at the front lines defending everyone else. She'd fled across the ice with the last of her inheritance, run out of lifespan, and sat down here to die, asking whoever found her for one thing only, that her sect's arts not vanish from the world. My children read her letter and bowed to her 3 times unprompted. Then Jinhai asked me, "Father, what is this demon abyss?" And I heard my own voice go flat in a way my children had never heard it, and I said, "Don't ask, not yet, because I know what leaks out of that name. I've stood at the edge of the lost vortex, which is a droplet of it, and the Flood Dragon Empress in my own back hills plans expeditions to it the way I plan market runs. And something from out of that word had eaten an entire righteous sect the way I eat a mission report, and my whole magnificent machine of rice and reputations was, on that scale, a candle arguing with the night. So, not yet. Grow first, little ones. I'll do the lying awake. I'm good at it. I don't sleep anyway." Her inheritance I took with clean hands and her blessing. 16 techniques, 2 of golden core grade. The Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, metal element, female only, complete with a natal mirror treasure, went to Mei Ling. The 9 nether frost art went to little Xiao Yu, whose ice root finally had a full inheritance to grow into. 100,000 stones, 3 4th-rank artifacts, a herb garden still half alive after 3 centuries, and 1 glazed lamp of Celadon glass, which was not an artifact at all. It was a key. The cave wasn't a cave. I'd been puzzling over it since I arrived. The water and wood spiritual energy in that chamber was thick enough to drink, and when I dove through the bedrock to find the vein feeding it, there was no vein. The ground below was ordinary. The richness came from nowhere, which means it came from somewhere the map doesn't cover. I hung in the sanctum, feeling the faint, patient ripple in the air, and put it together with the reverence of a man twice my apparent age. This was a small world, a pocket universe, a bubble of independent space with its own weather of qi, the Xuansu sect's greatest treasure, carried across a frozen continent by a dying woman, and portable, via that Celadon lamp, to any stable ground its owner chose, which meant it could be our ground. The move took me and my daughter 3 days, and it was the strangest logistics operation of my 2 lives. Step 1. Fly the lamp home and mark Green Lotus Mountain as the destination coordinate, like planting a flag for a landing. Step 2. My daughter, the lamp's new keeper, feeding her entire mana pool into it. Draining to fumes, resting, draining again, 3 full tanks over 3 days. As the small world hauled itself across 8,000 li in shuddering spatial hops, a soap bubble the size of a palace skipping like a stone across the map. On the 3rd evening, the sky over Green Lotus Mountain rippled like a struck gong. The air boomed softly, once, twice. Disciples poured out of every hall in various states of alarm and laundry, and before the assembled, gaping population of the Qingshan sect, a doorway to another world settled gently onto my ancestral peak and sat there, humming, glowing faintly from inside, smelling of rain and green things. The commentary from the crowd, for the record, "What is that? It looks like a cave. Do we need another cave? That is not a cave. I think the mountain just grew a door." And from little Xiao Yu, with total calm, "Teacher brought home a world." "Correct, child. Full marks from me. Your teacher brought home a world where the medicine garden will move, where the water and wood disciples will train at double speed, where the Xuansu sect's arts will be practiced again by living students, which settles my account with the woman on the cushion better than any tomb offering could." My Mei Ling landed beside the doorway, gray with 3 days of drain, and stood very straight anyway while the sect cheered itself hoarse. I floated up beside my exhausted, impossible daughter and her captive universe, and took stock, the way you do at the top of a long climb. 23 spirit stones. That was my treasury the day I died. 23 stones, 31 frightened disciples, a daughter who'd handed away her own sword, and a ghost with 50 points and no hands. Now, 3 foundation establishment children of my blood, heavenly roots and natal blades among them. An alchemist 1 shelf from brewing the pill that gatekeeps this entire world, with all 4 ingredients in my vault. Allies from 9 Cold Mountain to the Qingli Sea, a vassal clan, a warship, a merit hall, a money machine of fields and hives and mines and fisheries. a resurrection ticket, a golden core-proof shield on my daughter, a treasure map to the far ocean. And, as of tonight, my own private universe parked on the mountaintop, glowing like a second moon. Not bad for a dead man, if I say so myself, and I do. The mask can stay off for one more sentence. Children, your father is proud enough to haunt this mountain forever, but I'm not spending that resurrection yet, and here's the honest ledger of why. Somewhere out there, the way-old demon still remembers a debt. Somewhere out there stands the Yang family, with my son's blood oath aimed at their foundations like a slow arrow, 300 years in flight. Somewhere past the ice, the thing called the demon abyss has already eaten one sect whose only crime was standing guard, and it is not done being hungry. And somewhere, this is the line I say to the dark every night, where no system can hear and no child can worry. Somewhere out there is a woman with a heavenly root and a temper who out-argued me for 80 years, who walked off this mountain 12 years into my seclusion and never came home. Yu Xuan, my love, our children built all this. Come back to me and see it. Until then, I'll be right here, invisible, insufferable, watching every gate my family sleeps behind. The Qingshan sect buried its founder once and got a guardian ghost with a shopping addiction out of the deal. And heaven help the next thing on my list, because my wallet is fully loaded, my children are sharpened, and I never did learn to stay dead.